Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight, it's been 2 years since we had him. I can't believe it's been 2 years, because he's definitely up there, my top favorite guest, one of my first original guests from our first 10 episodes. I remember we had him on early. And still the most viewed episode, by the way, is our guest, Gavin Lee Davies. You might remember we had him first on for his book, Ghost Sex, The Violation. I said that book was intense. And then we had him on for the haunting of Haverfordwest. I butchered that. Yes, I butchered that, Gavin. You can remind me how I butchered it later. We had him on for that, and that was an intense book. Now we're having him on, and I just posted it. I just said this book is intense. It is really intense. The 3 books I have now read of Gavin make me think deeply and make me look into the shadows and wonder what's there. That's the kind of books this man writes. This book is called Harvest, the true story of alien abduction. This is something I've wanted to talk about with Gavin. We've touched base on it a little bit about alien abduction and his experiences in that. But this is about a person he interviewed going back to 2014 about her alien abduction experience. And it, like I said, is intense. It made me think about a lot of things that's happened to me. And I know I've mentioned it to you guys on the show before about some things I've wondered about me and maybe alien contact, and definitely in my shadow person experience. This brought up a lot of stuff in my shadow person experience. There's so much to this story. Highly recommend the book. I've been reading it since Wednesday. I'm going to probably finish it by tomorrow. It's called Harvest, the true story of alien abduction. Got to check it out. Of course, we got the World Wide Web of Weird, and we do got a lot of weird to get to, so we got to get rolling into that. And we will take your phone calls later in the show, probably after the second commercial break. But you know what, guys? We got a great guest tonight, so let's go ahead and get rolling right into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Gavin Lee Davies, is joining us. He's here with us now. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up because I was hoping you would join us for the World Wide Web of Weird, because you've always have such great, wonderful insights to the World Wide Web of Weird.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to be back. Thank you so much. It's been 2 years since Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, but good effort.
Haverfordwest. I'm still going to butcher it.
You got it. And it's been 5 years since that historic Ghost Sex, The Violation episode, which is still your top-rated show. And if anybody's out there, go and watch the Ghost Sex, The Violation episode. That was, to say the very
Well, you know, I don't know if I want people to see that, because that's back in the early days of Paranormal Soup. You'll see how far we've come.
You're amazing. You've always been amazing, Jason. You've always been great. So, go and watch it.
But it was an awesome show.
It was an awesome show. You've always been awesome.
Well, thank you. Of course, joining me is my lovely co-host, is Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing awesome. Thank you. Excited.
I know you. I know. We've been counting down the days to this episode. Also from St. Augustine, Florida, is Rob Autry himself. Kind of look like where I'm at.
Yeah, a rain backdrop because it's just been raining every day here in swampy Florida. So
yeah, it's cold and rainy here.
Yeah.
I hate fall, but yeah, yeah. Rain won't stop us though. We're indoors, virtual, whatever. Don't have to worry about the rain. No storms. It's just cold, wet, and rainy, and it sucks. And why I'm still like 3-4 weeks later, still feel, I don't have COVID. I still have just congested and like phlegmy. It's just this horrible, stupid weather. How's the weather over there across the pond?
Oh, it's dark. I can't see outside, but it's been raining a lot. My street is pretty much empty. Everyone's just hiding inside as we look like we're going into another lockdown here in the UK for COVID. We haven't got on top of it.
Yeah,
scary times, guys. I hope
things
everyone's
going on
keeping
here
safe.
too. It's not. There's places where it's breaking out too again. So we'll see. We'll see.
Everyone keep safe. Just keep safe, okay?
Yeah.
Just wise up and keep safe. Look after your families.
Well, Gavin, like I always say, join in, interrupt, talk, join us. I love your input on the World Wide Web of Weird, and we do have a lot to weird who get to. So let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, speaking of COVID, this is a pretty scary story. These next two stories might make your brain hurt, and not in the way of making you think hard. Not at all. A woman with skull defect leaks cerebral spinal fluid from her nose after nasal swab for COVID-19 test. Yes, you heard that right. She had cerebral fluid coming through her nose from a COVID test. Dear God. For those,
disgusting.
For those listening on the Paranormal Radio Network, we are a webcast. You can watch us on Facebook and YouTube, where we show pictures and video and all that. But if you want to just listen on the Paranormal Radio app, feel free to listen. I'll narrate as best as possible. Just listen to me butcher these towns' names. All right. All right. This one from ctvnews.ca, Toronto. A woman with an undiagnosed skull defect started leaking cerebral fluid out of her nose after she received a COVID-19 test administered with a nasal swab, according to a new case report. And, I've had friends have had to have the test. And it's like, yeah, they shove it way back up in there. The report published Thursday in the Journal of JAMA Otolaryngology, I definitely butchered that, head and neck surgery, described a singular unusual situation where the nasal swab disrupted a mass in the woman's nasal cavity containing a cerebral spinal fluid and brain tissue. The article says, for the patient, a woman in her 40s, it started with a COVID-19 test ahead of an elective hernia surgery. The poor woman had a hernia too. Jeez. The test was done using a nasal swab that reached deep into the nasal cavity, a common form of testing. Afterwards, she developed a runny nose in both nostrils and a metallic taste in her mouth, a headache, neck stiffness, and a sensitivity to light, as well as vomiting. To figure out what was going on, doctors inserted a flexible tube called a scope into the patient's nose. She's already had enough up her nose, right? They discovered a mass inside the nose, but not what was causing the fluid leakage. A CT scan identified a 1.8 centimeter sac-like structure protruding down into the nasal cavity between a breakage in the bone. It was an esophageal, or I'm totally butchering that, I'm sure, a term for a condition usually identified in infants where the bones of the skull do not fuse completely, creating a gap where the cerebral fluids and brain tissue can collect in a protruding lump. Doctors believe the nasal swabs damaged the mass within the nose, causing the leakage of the cerebral spinal fluid. Cerebral spinal fluid is a clear fluid found around the brain and spinal cord. It helps protect the brain and the spinal cord from injury and delivers nutrients and removes waste from the system. When a CSF leak occurs, it's because something has created a tear or hole in the connective tissue that keeps the CSF surrounding the brain and spine. If too much fluid leaks out, the brain sags into the head, putting pressure on parts of the skull and causing headaches, a condition known as spontaneous intracranial hypotension. CFS leaks are rare, but are sometimes misdiagnosed as migraines or other headaches disorders, according to Spinal at CSF Leak Canada. My hypochondriac self's going to think next time I have a migraine, I'm leaking cerebral fluid because I got a runny nose. Oh my God. That's so scary. Imagine you're just getting this test. You're already scared enough. You got to get a hernia surgery. You want to make sure you don't have COVID. And then this happens. But we'll move on. That's scary enough. This one's going to make your brain hurt too. And again, not because it's going to make you think hard. Doctors discover needles in a woman's brain. And when I'm reading your book, Gavin, I'm thinking about your the woman you interviewed, Susan, and about the pain she would get in her head. And I kept thinking about these articles I'm going to have for the World Wide Web of Weird. A 29-year-old woman who hails from Zhengzhou, definitely butchered that. Zhengzhou, I don't know how you say that, had undergone a scan after being involved in a car accident because doctors had recommended that she be checked for any possible head injury. When the images came back, however, to everyone's surprise, the woman appeared to have 2 large needles embedded in her brain, each measuring approximately 5 centimeters in length. What made the discovery all more mysterious was the fact that the needles had nothing to do with the car accident. They had seemingly been in there for years without her knowing about them. Stranger still, she has no recollection whatsoever of any head injuries, and it appeared that they must have been inserted when she was young, because judging by the diameter of the needles, they would have been unable to pierce the skull of an adult. Remarkably, the woman had never experienced any headaches or any other problems as a result. Because of this, it's unlikely the doctors will attempt to remove them. The case has since been reported to the police for further investigation. Like, did somebody abuse her as a child? Or is it aliens? That's my first thought, Gavin, when I read this article. It's like, are they needles? Are we sure? Because I've had alien abductees on this show, Gavin, that show me x-rays of stuff that's, could look like a needle or look like a wire in somebody.
Wouldn't it be cool, though, if they took one of the needles out and they found a fingerprint on it and captured the assailant from the fingerprint?
But her having no memory of how they got, I guess a child, if somebody did to her as a child, she just mentally would block it out. But it makes me think, are these needles? Are they needles? How they know? It's just an image on a CT scan, right? Or an X-ray. It's not going to really be very clear what they are.
No, they'd have to take them out and examine them. It'd be very interesting to see if they are actual needles and what they're made of. What is the composite? Is it something familiar on our planet, like one of our resources, one of our metals, or is it something totally different? It'd be very interesting to speak to that lady. I think you said she was in China or somewhere like that. So we probably
I don't know the name of this town.
Certainly not Haverfordwest. Hopefully, it'd be great to get her on the show. But yeah, that's terrifying. As you said, there's people getting all kinds of inserts in them, things in their ear. So many people are finding bits of metal in their ear, and they have no idea where this is coming from.
We've had Terry Lovelace on the show, and it's clear X-rays, and it's been removed by the aliens now. But he had in his knee X-rays of a perfectly square, microchip thing, in his knee, and a wire attached to it. Now the wire is the only thing left there. That square thing gone. All right, tell me how you say this one. Derbyshire, Derbysshire. What town is that? Yeah,
that's really good. Derbyshire. You did really well.
Derbyshire.
Well done.
I did horrible.
No, you did well. After earlier, I'm not correcting you ever again.
Derbyshire. Derbyshire Live.
That's good. That's good.
Now I had to hear you. I was going Derbyshire. Derby.
No, that's good.
Derbyshire. Okay. Derbyshire Live. Ghostly figure spotted in the ruins of Derbyshire stately home. I thought this is kind of a weird picture. A woman says she has been left with chills after spotting a ghostly figure in the ruins of Derbyshire's stately home. Charlene Lowe Kemp was visiting Scarsdale Hall near Chesterfield with a group of fellow paranormal investigators when the figure came into view in the abandoned hall. She says the group, who travel across the UK under the name Paranormal Hauntings, set up shop in the skeleton of the building where delighted with what they found during their trip in April this year. Their instruments they used to detect paranormal activity immediately began to go off, and the group sensed a presence in the building with them. And things got even more bizarre when 2 members of the team suddenly mysteriously became ill and needed to go home, leading to the night being cut short. Charlene says the apparition is believed to be that of a spirit of a woman who was looking for her husband who went off to war but not returned. Myself and my team went up to investigate because it's said to be haunted by a monk, a lady, and a man, the 31 said. As soon as we got the media, a medium who was with us said there was a floating monk type figure. We placed our equipment down and it was going off at the time. We were streaming it live on Facebook and people were watching said they could see a lady standing in the corner. However, the team's trip was brought to a premature end after 2 members of the group fell ill. We had to leave early with 2 members of the team being ill and the point where they had to go home. They live in their separate households, and it was not normally likely to feel like that. Being there clearly affected them. We were walking around, and equipment was going crazy. The group left a maze later to find the footage of their Facebook stream appearing to show a figure of a lady in the room. I don't have the Facebook stream, just the photo of it. Like I said, you can go to derbytelegraph.co.uk for this article to get more pictures or close-ups of this. But, I mean, it looks like a human figure if you really look into it.
Can I just interrupt? Can I just interrupt on this, right? Terry Smoghorn, right? He put a comment, right, saying monks again, right? Now, I don't often go on investigation. I find it very tiring, very boring, very laborious. But during the supermoon, when was that? I think the supermoon, I just had a mini stroke, so everything was a bit of a blur, right? So we've got an old abbey in Haverfordwest, this old abbey ruined monastery, right? Which had been populated by Augustinian monks. So I went out to take pictures of the supermoon, and very similar to the weather we're having now. It was just rainy and misty and cold. So I was just down there on my own, just taking pictures on my way home, okay? So I got home, and you can see these pictures on www.theparanormalchronicles.com. Head over to my website, okay? Put in the ghostly monk of Haverfordwest, and first thing I take a picture of was the mist had formed into what appeared, using pareidolia, of course, into the form of a monk, and you could see the cowl and the arms and all. And I thought, okay, that's quite interesting. But when I reviewed the pictures later, there was a solid person stood there, all hunched over, right?
Well, now, we can look that up later. We can.
Yeah. Have a look at it, because that's what this reminded me of. I don't want to be arrogant, but my picture was better.
No.
And, I don't have any gifts or abilities. I'm not a medium. I'm not overly sensitive to stuff, maybe empathic to certain people, but that was one of my best captures ever.
See, I've been doing this for years, Gavin. I've never gotten a solid picture of anything. I've had other investigators I'm with on investigations get great pictures, but me taking a picture, not one thing.
One day you and I.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Go on an investigation. It'd be amazing.
I want to come there and do
Star Trek. We'll dress up as Klingons.
Oh,
right.
It'd be cool. Yes. No, I go as a Vulcan. Come on now. You're going to do a paranormal investigation. You got to go as an away team.
I'm going as a
just go around and get drunk.
I want to go as Quark.
Quark? That'd be awesome. All right. We got to move on before we run out of time. All right. Where are we at? Okay, number 4. Now, TikTok. You know how I feel about TikTok. And Jamie's like, oh, BS before the show. I don't know about this one. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. I think this woman's reaction is pretty honest. TikTok video. Spooky moving curtain goes viral on TikTok. A clip that Oh, hold on. Don't play it yet. Let me talk. A clip that some have attributed to a ghostly visitor has received over 8 million views on the video sharing site. In the age of social media, even the simplest videos has this potential to rack up millions of views. And this is the latest example, which went viral this week as no exception. Posted on the popular video sharing platform TikTok by user Anna Banana, clip shows a titular star preparing to comment on a can of lime-flavored White Claw drink when a curtain in the background suddenly starts to move on its own. Spotting the movement on her screen, she can be seen running up to the curtain to see if anything's there before closing the door. Of course, the most likely explanation by far is that the curtain was being moved by the wind, but that hadn't stopped millions of people from viewing, liking, and commenting on the footage. Some even claim to have seen a figure or a shadow moving away after the curtain moved. We're going to check that out. You can check out the footage for yourself here. We're going to play it. Go ahead and play it. Let's just see. Let people decide.
And a banana got her White Claw going on.
And a banana.
So for today's drink,
I think it's an honest reaction. She didn't stop. Oh, what's that? No, she ran up and I'm going to deck the full plane with me right now.
It looks like she was waiting for it and expecting it. That was too fast. She's looked for
No,
it.
watch her eyes.
Side. She was framed to the right as well.
So
that's true.
Who knows? I don't know. I love the way she just leapt through it. There could have been someone there. She just leapt through it. Just speared them.
So for
Or someone
today's
threw a
drink,
tennis ball against it and it like fell down.
It's kind of weird because it looks like it
Because
goes
you do
from
see
right to
the-
left,
the-
and then it looks like something goes down the curtain.
so for today's drink,
It's the dude sleeking off that's doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
definitely
think Jamie's got much better TikTok for that, if I'm honest. Go and join it, people. It's great.
So I don't know.
It's
I
good.
thought
It's a good video.
Yeah, who knows? It might be real. I don't know. That's the problem with TikTok. That's probably the internet. What the hell am I talking about? It's not just TikTok.
drink,
Yep.
All right, let's move on. This one, I love the audio stuff. So it's not really about the video we're going to play here in a minute. It's more about what you hear in the video. From the dailystar.co.uk, dog owner terrified as pet camera records audio of a child speaking to the dog. And no relation here, but the name of the person, Tara Bland. I have a cousin named Tara Bland, but it's not her. Tara Bland's video has been seen a whopping 2 million times on TikTok, another TikTok video. Viewers were convinced that the voice from the ghost child was heard speaking to her dog. A dog owner was left petrified after capturing what she believes was a ghost of a child's voice talking to her dog in the dead of night. Tara Bland's chilling video of her dog, Dexter. I love their name, the dog name. Does he kill people, serial killers? No. Oh, dang it. My article just went nuts. Where's my article? Okay.
That's nuts.
Just refreshed. But as the pooch starts leaving the room, you appear to hear a child's voice say, "Don't go, doggy." Dexter then starts barking, leading Tara to ask what happened. In the caption of the video, the uploader explained that I'm upstairs. You may hear me yell, "Dexter." Oh, my article's going nuts. Hold on. I want to finish it because I got to figure out which the part you'll hear. Dang it. Stupid article. The article is possessed now. It's possessed by this story. When I heard what it picked up, the hairs on the back of my head, you can hear a child clearly say, "Don't go, doggy." The clip has very seriously spooked out our viewers coming to join. I think you hear her say it's the dog barking in the background. That's her. Sounds like a child. Most child spirits aren't. In fact, see, I want to read this damn article, the part, but it keeps reloading. It's ticking me off. Because you'll hear it say, "Don't go, doggy." It's going to be really hard to hear. Yeah, go ahead and just play it. My article's just possessed. I give up. Hear it? Go back. It's she's going, "What are you barking at?" To the "Don't go, doggy." Go back.
Why was this? What is this, CCTV or what is this recorded on?
I can't tell you because the article kept on glitching out on me. I was trying to find that part. I'm guessing her security cameras inside the house. Go back. It's back further. Go back.
And then why
Hold
should
on.
go back and review it later?
It's before that. That.
Yeah. Don't go. Yeah, now my dogs are barking.
There's a part in the story why she checks it out. I don't remember. I can't read it. The article literally just keeps flipping out on me. Like I can't even figure out where I left off at because it kept on flipping out on me. We're running out of time too. But it sounds like an EVP in there. I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was a good video. I liked that. Gave me a little bit of a goosebump. It's quite nice to think, animals got different frequencies. And if you think possibly of like a dimensional or spiritual child there, it's quite nice, isn't it? The dog and the child are playing.
Yeah, and it's like it's like the dog went to tell her. And she kind of knew something was up.
Very quickly, I know you can't read the whole article, but was there a history of like a dead child or anything of that nature?
I believe there was some stuff, and they've had some stuff happen in the home already. Now she caught it, and that's why I wanted to read that whole story. And I read it last week, and now I can't remember, and it's totally gone. I'm not going to try again because we're running out of time. But it was at what was the website? I'll tell you guys if you want to check it out. Because if the article works for you, dear God.
dailystar.co.uk?
Yeah, dailystar.co.uk. Just be dog owner terrified by pet camera. Be last week that came out. Okay, so this next one's from UFO Sightings Blog Spot because we're gonna run out of time. So, September. Let's see, September around the same location. They've been seeing numerous sightings of the same light in Gaffney, South Carolina. It's not a plane, not a star. It's just unexplainable, and it keeps returning. As of the 30th, there are two, as you can see in the film. I only got the one. There's like a 5-minute video. I only got about a minute of it. Witnesses are convinced that the ball light is not a man-made object and a star planet, and many wonder whether it's an orb. I can't read the whole article, so I want to get to playing the video. But people have been spotting this in the same town for numerous nights, and it keeps showing up. Go ahead and play it.
When I do my bride,
I keep waiting for Boomer to come in here. Man, I tell you one thing.
there's something wrong.
Me and Jamie and Rob would play PUBG, and you hear Jamie's thumbs on a phone. That's what it sounds like here, because you can tell she's with her phone. You hear her thumb noises. It is odd looking, but it's hard to tell because it's off of a phone.
Will we get banged up in a minute? Because our phones don't have evidence. Oh, it got real close up on me. I ran a damn house.
They seem believable. to
Yeah.
me. And I know the way it blow up, like lights just do that on your phone.
All right, we'll move on. You can get that at UFO sightings shotspot.blogspot.com. But I got one more, and we're almost out of time. And this one's funny. I wanted to read it because it's a recommendation here too. We were going to talk about aliens tonight and alien abduction. Well, man steals truck to attend alien rendezvous. A man, and this was from unexplainedmysteries.com. Man in Utah told police he had needed to get to the Coliseum to get on a flight with alien diplomats. The bizarre incident began when police in Utah were alerted to a vehicle theft by the owner of a red pickup truck who reported that it had been stolen from outside a 7-Eleven store in Salt Lake City. When officers arrived at the scene, however, the owner revealed that the man suspected of stealing the truck had since returned it to the place he had stolen it from. It was now on the run. Suspect was quickly apprehended and taken to a local hospital to receive treatment for a wound he had sustained when the truck's owner had punched him in the face. While he was there, however, he attempted to escape police custody 3 times. He then apologized to the officers and stated that he had an urgent need to get to the Coliseum to get on a flight with alien diplomats. He was ultimately booked and suspected for theft and 3 counts of attempted escape. All right, tonight we're going to talk about alien abduction. If you're in contact with aliens and they tell you to meet you at a Coliseum, just get a taxi. That's all I'm going to say. You don't have to steal a truck. That's it for the World Wide Web. Weird. Man, we ran totally out of time on that. But tonight's guest, Gavin Lee Davies. We were going to talk about your book, Harvest, The True Story of Alien Abduction. Like I said, this is an intense book. If you're like somebody like me who's had maybe some alien experiences I'm delving into right now in my past I didn't really think about, books like this make me think about them. Make me wonder some of the things that happened to me. And Gavin, I do want to get into it tonight. My shadow person experiences, there's so many things that correlate to this that you kind of freak me out with this book.
That's what I do. That's what you
do. It's always intense with Gavin. All right, guys, we'll be back after the short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to The Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author L Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Do you like rock and roll? Do you enjoy a good story? Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It will not only entertain you, but intrigue you. What is it about? Well, Thomas is searching for his bandmate and friend in heaven, and in spirit has helped pen this story. He meets an old friend and famous new ones on his afterlife voyage. Midwest Book Review said, Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It's a quirky story by Joyce S. Isaacson and is unique, original, and deftly crafted metaphysical novel that showcases the author's genuine flair for character and narrative-driven entertainment that is simply riveting from first page to last. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is now available on tenantpublication.com, amazon.com in paperback and hardcover, and also on Kindle Unlimited. So check it out now. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Gavin Lee Davies. Gavin is the author of a worldwide best-selling haunted horror of Haverfordwest and Ghost Sex, The Violation. We had him back, like I said, 5 years ago when we talked about Ghost Sex, The Violation, in a very intense book. It's a very serious, intense book. And he keeps writing intense books, because we're going to talk about Harvest, the true story of alien abduction tonight. Gavin was born in 1975 and lives in Pembrokeshire, West Wales. He has studied hauntings in 19th century literature. He's also the host of the Paranormal Chronicles podcast. His investigations presented in the book, in his books have sold over 125,000 copies and have been in a number 1 in 7 different countries. Dave's passion has always been for paranormal and has spent years listening and collating local ghost stories and myths. He admits he's on the fence in terms of his beliefs. He has witnessed many strange occurrences in his life, but prefers travel the psychological and rational route before making any assumptions. He respects the views on all the subjects, maintaining that no person alive has the necessary knowledge and understanding of time, space, and the intricacies of the human mind to be certain about the paranormal. And I agree with that 100%. Why he's one of my favorite guests. Gavin's paranormal reports, paranormalchronicles.com, have made national and international news. Gavin Davies describes himself as a down-to-earth and passionate about the paranormal, and he's been quoted as saying, "There will be a day when the paranormal will simply be known as the normal, and I long for that day." And I do too. Tonight we're talking, like I said, about Harvest, the true story of alien abduction. And I've been reading this book since Wednesday. It's kept me up at night thinking about stuff, and I think it will if you, like me, have had some really dark, strange experiences you wonder are alien related. Might bring that out in you. Kind of like Terry Lovelace's Incident at Devil's Den book for me. That did. I think this book really starting to get to me on some level about some of the things that have happened to me. So it might with you. So be warned. Be warned. You never know when you'll awaken to the fact that you might be taken by aliens. I believe in 100% these people's experiences, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We will open up the phone lines later in the show, but we got a lot to get to with our guests, so let's go ahead and get right on into it. Welcome to the show, Gavin. It's so good to have you back, and especially to talk about this book.
Thank you so much, Jason, and to your team and to everyone listening. You gave me one of my first ever opportunities to talk about what I do. I'm a little different, as people will guess. I'm a little different from maybe some of your other guests. And coming back to Paranormal Soup, it just feels like home. It just feels like a really good, safe place, which is quite rare to feel that level of comfort with some of the subjects I've investigated. And I just want to say thank you to everyone in the chat room, everyone who's listening, everyone from the Paranormal Chronicles who is staying up late tonight. And Jason said about having the phone lines open. So if you have any UFO or alien experiences, I really want to listen to them because it's something I'm very excited. And I also know, little plug here, I know that Paul Anthony Wallace, the best-selling author of Escaping from Eden, he's listening tonight. So, Paul, hello to you in Australia. If you haven't read Escaping from Eden, guys, holy moly. Yeah, it's this whole ancient aliens. This guy was a preacher who reinterpreted the Bible and then just found all these glaring errors. And he's like just this amazing, cool Australian guy. And his book is awesome. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jason, for having me back. It's great to be home.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Like I said, you were one of my first, in a set of first guests I had, and just extremely lucky to have gotten you for a small show that I was.
No, likewise. Thank you for the opportunity you gave me. As I've always said, it doesn't matter if you've got 5 viewers or 1 million viewers. We are spreading knowledge, we're spreading, experiences, and we're making it more acceptable for people to come forward and talk about the paranormal as if it's a normal thing. And you're a big part of that, Jason. Honestly, this show is phenomenal. I love it.
That's why I do it. And alien abduction is something that's become a little more close to my heart over the years. Ever since, like I said, I had now made a good friend with Terry Lovelace, Incident at Devil's Den, awoken me to some things that happened in my past. And I know I've talked to you about my shadow person experience, but there's some alien things that happened in my past that I'm kind of coming to terms with. And I wonder if they're related to the shadow person experience. And then reading your book, and I don't want to get too much into it yet, but reading your book, you're Susan, this is what we will call the name of the person in the book. She sees, the description she gives of what she sees, I'm like, that's my shadow person. I had different kinds of shadow people. I had the 7-foot tall shadow person that walked right up to me one night, but the main shadow person I'd see was very like what she saw, like the way she described her shadow person. So that makes me wonder about my experience.
Well, I think we should just get down to brass tacks, right?
Well,
and then what I want to say is that, you know, my 3 main investigations, right? Ghost Sex Violation, which dealt with spectrophilia, Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, which dealt with my own personal account and another people's account in a house in Haverfordwest, right? Which was a very, very intense haunting.
Yeah.
And then this about aliens, right? And there are so many similarities that you have to start thinking about the ambiguity of what is actual. You know, we can't label these things, you know, demons, ghosts, spirits, aliens, dimensional beings, shadow people, cryptids. They might be all from the same gene pool. They might be the same thing we're experiencing. I ain't got no proof of that. I'm just putting that idea out there, you know, some strange stuff going on.
That's why I always say why I named the show Paranormal Soup, because I've always felt all these things are connected. It's one big soup bowl of paranormal, and they're all connected in this soup bowl somehow. It really do feel they're all connected. I mean, you know, Ghost Sex Violation, first time we had you on. I mean, people hear that we've talked about, you wish you kind of titled it something else. It's very serious, and it's not like spectrophilia, like the people, the woman who tries to marry the ghost kind of spectrophilia. This is like the title says, violation.
Yeah, it's horrific. You know, we're talking about an ordinary woman, just an ordinary mom.
Yeah.
You know, working class, standard education, nothing extraordinary about her being subjected. I'll keep it very PG. If you want to read the book, it's out there. It's been out there for about 5-6 years. Subjected to paranormal sexual assault. You know, if that was a human doing that, that is debased, that is rape, that is something. This woman believes that she was being sexually violated by not only a spirit but some form of demon. And I didn't know I was bipolar until a year ago. At the age of 44, I was diagnosed as bipolar after having a mini stroke. And I interviewed this lady for a huge amount of time. She's a great woman. She, you know, nothing gave me any doubts that she was making this up. To her, it was real. And you just sat there listening to this most intense, debased, inhuman treatment of a woman. It is disgusting. And like, people were getting their rocks off on it, and that says more about them than anything can ever say. It's not erotica. You know, there's an internet out there. You got to porn up, go there. This book is not about this. It's very, very sad, very tragic. What people, succubus, incubus, you know, someone's got it straight away. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's some, I mean, I've had Barry Taff on since we've done that interview, and I thought a lot about Ghost Sex Violation when I had him on. We talked about the entity case because there's so many similarities, you know, and we're dealing with something interdimensional, something we can call it ghosts, demons, but you know, like you said, it's just terms we don't know the science of it. We don't know what's going on. We don't know. My shadow person experience wasn't sexual; it was mental. This thing try to mentally destroy me. This is the thing. This is why I do the show. This case you have, we're talking about tonight. These are things that people were not going to tell anybody, not even their closest friends, because you go through something that is this out of this world, that torments you, drives you to the brink. You don't want to tell anybody because they're going to think you're crazy. They're going to come. You already feel like you're crazy. Even if you get the proof in front of you that this is really happening, you have some witnesses, it doesn't matter. You still know if you speak the words, you say what's happening to you, be it demonic possession or succubus or alien abduction, people are going to judge you. And that's hard for people to come out. That's why I wanted to do this show, is to have an open forum. Nobody's going to judge you. You have a place to call, talk, listen, get ideas, and be able to say, I've had this happen to me.
We live in a society, and it's something we'll probably come back to during the course of the interview, but for years and years, I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm not like this huge UFO expert. I know what I know, and I'm interested in it. I've always been interested in it. But like, the media portray that anybody who has had a UFO experience is a fantasist or some kind of delusional person. And that comes from the top. That comes from the government. You know, for years, the government said that there was no such thing as UFO. So somebody has a sighting, like that video you put a video on earlier of strange lights in the sky. Who knows what it is? People are saying swamp gas, it was a blimp, it was, you know, Venus, whatever, right? It could be a drone, but people don't want to come forward because they will be ridiculed. in some of the newspapers you quoted from, right? If you or I came forward and said we'd had this alien encounter, it would be little green men and little jokes about probes and stuff.
Yep.
And something's happening, right? We'll go into it later. I've got like this kind of monologue I want to leave everyone with at the end, right? But we're in a period of soft disclosure. Everything we were told that there was no UFO conspiracy was a lie. There was. And now they're telling us. And a lot of people missed this, right? On, I believe it was June the 22nd, the Pentagon released another story that they were actively investigating unknown aerial phenomenon. But nobody knew, nobody was paying attention because we were in COVID and America was tearing itself
Ain't
apart.
that convenient?
Isn't that weird?
Convenient? It's convenient for them.
So people can't talk. Like, the great thing is about you and I and Jamie and Rob and all these people in the chat room is that we are talking about it. Yeah, we're not nutters. You know, we're not fantasists or delusional. I bet there's a lot of people listening right now, right? You've had a strange experience, but you've had to be closeted about it. You know, it's like you've got this deep, dark secret. Like, you can't go into work and say to your boss, "Oh, do you know what? I'm not really feeling it today because of a 7-foot shadow man came at me."
Right.
Or saying to your partner, "Look, we can't have sex tonight because I was anally buggered. I was raped by a dimensional being or demon." You know?
Look what happened. You know, I'm a big fan of Art Bell, and I used to listen to his interviews with Whitley Strieber, and I remember them talking about Whitley going on. What was the famous talk show host, Larry King.
Yeah.
And when Whitley starts talking about being anally raped, Larry King laughed.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that was horrifying for Whitley. That was horrifying. You know, that was so embarrassing. And Larry King realized later how wrong he was and said something to Art Bell like, "Hey, I screwed up on that interview. It was just so wrong of me." Because he understood it is a serious thing. Whitley Strieber's not just coming out. You know, people are always just selling a bunch of books. You read Communion, you read his other stuff. It's very personal. It's very personal. This guy's opening up his life to people. Yeah.
I love Communion. And I still regularly, like, you're one of the shows, whenever I have the opportunity, I listen to your show. I listen to a load of shows. And Whitley Strieber's Unknown Country is one of the shows I listen to because he is so honest and open about his experience. And I think now it's more digestible. People can talk about it and there's less attacks. But even saying that, one of my authors, not everybody knows, but not only am I an author, I'm also a publicist and a publisher. And if anybody out there's got any writing ambition, get in touch with me. You know, John Hunt Publishing, amazing people. Okay. So one of the imprints I manage is called sick-books, right? sick-books.com. It's all about the paranormal, metaphysics. My books from there, Hauntings from there. There's some great paranormal books, right? Good plug there, right? And one of my authors, I love this guy to bits, so I'm not going to say who he is. He's been on the show, and do you know what, Jason? You were so kind to him, so respectful to him. You gave him the time of day. But other shows cut him off because it didn't fall into place with their narrative of what they think aliens should be and how they should operate. Nobody knows. Paul Wallace, the author Escaping from Eden, said there's a cabal of aliens, all with different designs and agendas, right? Some are good, some are really freaking terrible, which we're going to talk about. But this poor author goes out there with his personal experience for sent him on a spiritual crusade. And in his Facebook, on the book promotions, people are going, "What a load of crap. What a load of, what an idiot. What a weirdo. You know, little green man. Ha, ha, ha." So what if this is all true? We've got the best pilots in the world with the best planes being outmaneuvered by objects that we don't know what they are.
Admitted by our government now. Here we are, Gavin.
Admitted, right? So it's been admitted, right? And something that's kind of like in my monologue at the end, but I just put out there now, right? There's things coming into your airspace, right? The American nation has the most powerful military complex in the world. You have the very best soldiers, troops, weapons. You've got it all, right? You've got the best aces, the best fighter pilots, all right? And there's objects coming into your airspace where you can barely keep up with. Now, if that was a Chinese or a Russian or North Korean aircraft that was coming back and forth into your airspace unchallenged, how would that make you feel as a nation? What if those same people were taking your family, friends, people from your community and abducted them, torturing, experimenting, harvesting them like animals? You would go to war. And that's what we got to ask our governments now. So you're telling us these little things, right? You're never, ever going to tell us the whole truth. But we know now that there's things that aren't drones. They're not swamp gas. They're not geese. It's not freaking Venus, whatever crap people want to tell you. We now know there is something very serious happening, right? And I believe it was Mikhail Gorbachev, he was the leader of the second most powerful nation on the planet. He said, the phenomena of UFOs is real and it must be treated seriously. And this was like 30 years ago. Him and Reagan signed a peace accord about if any planetary threat happened, the Cold War would be put to one side, they'd work together. This is serious now, guys. The paranormal is serious. And as we advance in science and our technology, we are finding out more and more stuff. Another news story, right? Another news story that came out at the same time, pretty much few days, right, after the Pentagon, was that scientists in, I believe it was the North Pole, it could be the South Pole, I'm sorry, I haven't got that information to hand, had found evidence that there is a parallel dimension working in reverse to our own. So now everything's open. So we've got strange objects coming to our planet which aren't anything to do with us, and we've pretty much got proof there's a parallel universe working in reverse to our own. So guys, guess what? I say in my bio, right? I need to change that, I'm on the fence, but guess what? I'm swinging because I'm thinking now everything's fair game. Everything is fair game, guys. Everything is now a possibility. So anybody out there, you want to criticize people for having experience, don't be so small-minded. Start using this and think about the bigger picture.
Well, that's the thing, the bigger picture. All these people couldn't come out 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, have a little bit of indication when the government admits that there is something we can't identify. People were afraid to even come out to say they've seen a UFO, let alone alien abduction. That's a lot harder subject to bring up and tell people you've been a part of. But people were afraid for years to say they've seen a UFO. Now it's on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? People are, oh yeah, look, we got cameras galore. So there is an openness. The thing is, I remember listening to those Whitley Strieber Art Bell shows, listen to many Art Bell shows. One of the things I always would say is like, well, they can't reveal any of the truth. Because once you admit to one thing, it's a rock that'll roll, a snowball that'll roll down the hill, and there's going to be more and more and more questions. And what a perfect time for him to start doing soft disclosure when the world's so distracted. I mean, if we didn't have all this other stuff going on, and the news cycle could only had that as the main news cycle, I mean, it would be big, it would be huge, but it's buried. It's so buried, like you said, hardly anybody notices these things going on right now.
Yeah, and can I just say, Keith Antley Blanchard, one of the amazing authors from Sick-Books, John Hunt Publishing, he is in the chat room. He's an amazing guy. Hello, Keith. I hope you're keeping well. That guy has such incredible knowledge. Like,
yes,
I'm not sure. I think you've interviewed him. That guy has had some incredible experiences. Okay, love you, Keith. Really love you, pal. Now, we're getting this disclosure, right? And what I believe will happen. Well, just to give you an example. So I believe it was, I think it was December 2017, right? The conspiracy theories all came true. There was an actual secret UFO project, and these objects have been tracked and chased by our best aircraft, right? And the story did not break on some UFO forum or conspiracy website, but in a fact-checked article in the New York Times, right? So I was pretty like, this is great, this is it, talking to my buddies. And then when the June story broke during all the pandemic and chaos, right? I said to my colleague, I said, have you seen what the Pentagon has said? And he was so confused. He said, no. They released that in December 2017. And he was so matter of fact about it. It's like if I asked him, did he want a cup of green tea? He was like, oh, okay. And there's never, in my opinion, right, there's never going to be a day in the near future where the president of the United States or whatever country comes on TV and says, Everyone, we are not alone in the universe. What will happen is we will get released little snippets, little by little, until in 5, 10, 20 years, UFOs, we don't know what they are, but they come in. And that's what's going to happen. So we're going to be desensitized. There'll be no big mystery, no big excitement about it. There won't be shootings and riots and chaos and all this. Again, like
that's happened already.
Yeah, that's happened. That happened without UFOs.
Yeah.
You know? And to quote Paul, to refer to Paul Anthony Wallace again from Escaping from Eden, right? He said the Catholic Church, and this is out there. This is one of those things that are out there that you can just go and get and read, right? The Catholic Church have a press release ready to control the narrative for when the disclosure comes. So
when was it? It wasn't not that long ago that the Catholic Church, what has it been, about 5-6 years ago, they came out and came up with it, that would they accept the idea of alien life on other planets, like in preparation. People have been saying how the secret government plan, whatever, has been using Hollywood, like Steven Spielberg, to prep us for aliens and all that. But it seems from all the research I do and all the guests I had, the subject is going to be too complicated for people to handle. Not just that they're aliens here, but the subject itself is too complicated for people to even understand or handle, and that the government can't even understand or handle it.
But what they do is, right, we just make the notion acceptable, right? There's that like age-old wisdom thing. Yeah, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time, right? So for the last, I don't know how many amount of time, I really love my NASA stuff, right? I love the fact we're landing stuff on comets, and we're going to all these planets. We've really ramped it up, right? And in my belief, and hey, I'm just a guy from Haverfordwest in West Wales, I believe that is all part of the disclosure, right? Because we're getting used to these ideas that there's microbes on Mars, right? Now there's possibly some life on Venus, life within the clouds, right? And we are conditioning ourselves to get ready for the idea that life can exist anywhere. So during the same week that we had the news from the Pentagon, during the riots, during the pandemic, during the economic collapse, people are worried about how they're going to put food on the table, and will they have a job, and what's going to happen to their mortgage, right? We had news that there was the possibility of a parallel dimension working in reverse to ours, and they believe that there is a minimum of 8 Earth-like planets in our galaxy. They've done the math, and that's all 3 of those stories came out at the same time, right? And you wrap around that our little missions to Mars again this week. We found water. When I was in school, right, there was this little song we used to sing. I don't know what the song was, but it was like, where there's water, there is life. So we're just getting programmed. So as soon as you hear, if you got like a little bit of like sense about biology and chemistry, right? As soon as you hear, oh, there's water on Mars, there's going to be life. It could be really basic life. So we've got Venus, our closest planet, and Mars, the most Earth-like planet, and there's already very, very limited life on there, right? Very, very basic life, right? But we're being conditioned to understand that there's more sophisticated life out there, and I don't know a lot about it, but I think that we realized for a fact that there was sophisticated life visiting our planet in the 40s. Now you can go back to cowboy times, Wild West times, there's UFO sightings. You can go back into medieval
Aurora,
times.
Texas.
But yeah, biblical times, right? You can go back to the Second World War with Foo Fighters, right? They have always been here. They are in our mythology. Read Escaping from Eden. They're in our mythology. They're in our religion. Very challenging for some people out there. If you're particularly religious, don't mean to offend or challenge you, but that's a fact. There's stuff being mentioned in our history, our mythology, our religions, in our old Eastern philosophies are all tied back to one thing. There's something up there, and they've come here. Jungle tribes that have no connection to the world are wandering around in wicker baskets dressed as astronauts with pardon my French, with antenna coming out the back, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we've kept it all under wraps, and we're the crazy ones. We're the ones with the tinfoil hats and the little green men. But guess what, guys? It's true, and it's happening. And that's why Harvest over the last 2 years has become even more important to me, because let's not stop at the visiting. Let's not stop at the flying around and they're making cool videos of our phones of lights and stuff. And our Air Force pilots are laughing at the tic-tac and all that, right? How many people and for how long have said they've been abducted by aliens?
Exactly.
How long have people have claimed that they're part of a hybridization program? How many people have claimed that they've been harvested or had things extracted, or Whitley Strieber having a probe put in him, right? So Larry King can laugh, right? I've got some figures here, right? Really scary figures, right? This isn't me like just making them up, right? These are figures I got for this show, right? Because I'm excited, guys, because this is my first interview to talk about Harvest. I'm a very excitable guy, but the difference with this against Ghost Sex Violation, which really scared me, and Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, which was something I myself lived through
personally,
is that this is something that affects every man, woman, and child on this planet, and we need to take it seriously, okay? And I'm not guaranteeing that this is true, but listen to this, right? On average, 625,000 people go missing a year in the United States. Now, of course, the majority of explanations like murders, suicide, they just had enough and dropped out, mental health, cults, you name it, right? But 1% vanish into thin air with no explanation.
Yep.
Where did they
Missing
go?
411.
Britain, a little island on the edge of Europe, right? One person goes missing in Britain every 90 seconds. Australia. How? I know, right? 30,000 people a year go missing every year in Australia, right? There are tens of thousands of people across the world which are simply never heard of again with no evidence of mental health issues or foul play. You know, let's ask, guys, where did they go? Now, I want to ask you all a question, right, before we get into the brass tacks of Harvest, right? What if someone is sat there now at home waiting for their husband or their daughter or their wife or whatever to walk back through that door who've been missing for months, years, decades? And the government knows they ain't coming back. There's nothing left of them. They've been harvested. They've gone. And we don't know why. And people say, well, why would they do that to us? Why do we put spiders in a jar? You know, why do we feel the need to domesticate horses, cats, dogs? Why do we have to see a spider run through our house? We've got to kill it and chuck it out the window. Why do we have to kill flies? We just do it. It's just instinct.
Yep.
So if something is, when you look at the age of the universe, okay, billions of years old, you know, we've been told there's possibly 8 other Earth-like planets in our galaxy, minimum, right? Which is insane. When you look at the probability of how much stuff is out there, when you look at how many suns are in our galaxy, how many planets, how many moons, how much potential there is in our own galaxy.
I think 8's a low number.
Yeah, it's really low, right? And if you were to say, okay, then maybe they started like us. Some might be a little bit more advanced. Some of them might be a lot more advanced, right? But then you pull back and you look at the universe, our little quadrant, and then there's millions of galaxies. And then the universe, we don't know what it's expanding into. We don't know how big it is. We don't know how vast it is. We don't know how old it is. So the possibility, the maths is on our side, but there is life out there, right? So if you look at an older civilization, right, maybe they're 1,000 years ahead of us. Maybe they're 10,000. Maybe they're 1,000,000 years older than us, right? How are they going to view it? Yeah, Keith, you just said we're going to view us like roaches. Yep. When you see how we treat insects, how we treat gorillas, we cut gorillas' hands off, guys, for paws. We kill dolphins and sharks for an aphrodisiac so people can get a boner off a dead animal. Yep. You know, everything on this planet, and this isn't some rant, Susan says this isn't some pious rant about the environment and animal welfare. What I'm trying to make the point is that we are going to be treated like animals by a superior race, right? And people say, well, would they? Maybe the aliens would be good. Maybe they'd be nice, right? How good were we, the Europeans, when we went into Africa,
exactly,
South America, North America? How good were we when we went into India? we taught them cricket, and we gave them smallpox. You know, that isn't a good trade, right? So we look at these alien beings, right? If they are alien, you know, there's a whole other argument about dimensional beings.
Multiverse.
You know, people have come to me with all kinds of berserk stuff about hollow earth, Nazis on the moon, hollow moons. We used to live on Mars, but we wrecked Mars, and this was our lifeboat, and now we're trying to go back to the planet we wrecked. There's all this kind of crazy, amazing stuff, right? But the point is, if I was an advanced alien species and I came to this planet, I would look at us and say, they don't respect themselves. Why should we respect them?
Right. Well, what you know, I've always wondered, you say that, and it seemed like after the atomic bomb was dropped, that's when things popped off for UFOs. I mean, they've always been here, but it seemed like it gave permission to something. That's all the stories, everything collating. Just in the back of my mind, I always feel like when we dropped the nuke or the atomic bomb, that gave permission for something. Because look at how much it all broke. The UFO started. I mean, then of course you have cases before, but it really seemed like the whole UFO wave really. Anyway, what was it centered around? Our nuclear facilities. Even still, we talked last week, Gavin, about all these mysterious drones. That they call them drones, if that's what they are. They're big, they'd be expensive, that are flying around nuclear facilities since 2014.
Rendlesham Forest.
Rendlesham Forest. We had Nick Redfern on about Rendlesham Forest. Now he thinks he thinks Rendlesham Forest is a military psyop by Porton Down. Yeah.
Well, an SAS guy came out about a year or two ago. I covered it in the Paranormal Chronicles Year in Review, saying that it was the SAS were trying to test the American security.
Yeah.
And this guy came forward. I think his name was Ralph. There was no evidence. And I thought, is this part of the cover up? And that's the part. This is like,
who do you trust?
With ghosts and with like ghosts and demons and spirits, right? You kind of like the spectrum of plausibility is quite small, right?
Right.
But when you go into ufology, right, it's like an onion with loads and loads of layers, and you keep peeling and peeling and peeling and peeling, right? You know, we've got everything from, is it a drone? Is it a military thing? Is it someone else's? Is it Russian? Is it something to do with space? Is it something to do with the earth? You know, is it aliens? Is it dimensional? Is it time travel? Is it Nazis? Is it hollow earth? Is it this? Is it that, right? And it's just such an ambiguous subject, this huge topic. And the more you dig into it, the more confusing it is, because one thing we all know, whatever we're told, is not going to be real. So if somebody says it's fake, then is it real? And if they say it's real, is it fake? And look how much videos, like Jason, I bet you get loads of videos sent to you and you're like, oh, this is rubbish. Somebody's just made this, you know.
Or like, the blimp recently, everybody thought was a UFO.
You know, like I get stuff all the time sent to me, right? And I'm like, guys, you know, it's CGI. It's been lifted from like Halo. It's been lifted from a video game. It's been lifted from that. You know, it's been lifted from Star Wars and projected onto like a New York City skyline, and people are shoveling in us up, right? And it's got to the degree now that even if we were shown something real, we're going to be like, well, I don't know anymore. It's just so confusing. And we need to start paying attention, right? Because whatever these things are, these beings, these aliens, right? They're taking a little bit at a time, right? So think about it, right? I put this in Harvest the book, right? If you take 2 people from Britain a day, 2 people from America a day, right? These alien beings, right? Wherever you want, they're hybridizing them, abducting them, experimenting on them, harvesting them, right? Whatever the motive is, we'll never understand. It's like, Jason, you trying to explain to your dog why you're driving to work and using a microwave. It's just that communication is just never going to be there, right? So you take 2 from Canada, 2 from Italy, 2 from Australia, right? There's 212, I believe, countries in the world, right? So if you took 2 from each, right, that's like 400 odd people a day gone, missing, right? Doesn't matter. Maybe they just had enough. Maybe they put a gun in their head. Maybe they got involved with a cult. Maybe they changed their name. Maybe it's Saul Goodman and they're living in like Nebraska, right? If you take a little bit at a time, you don't notice. If I came into your house
exactly
and took $1 out of your wallet every day, no one's going to notice, right? So these beings, they're kind of doing it in plain sight because we've got all this UFO footage and people like remembering like shadowy figures and experiences and pains, and people like Whitley Strieber, women with needles in their head and things in their knee, and we've all got these experiences, right? So they're quite blasé about it, but they're not doing it on an industrious level yet. What happens, right? I'm not a fearmonger. What happened if it just turns into V or Independence Day?
So Gavin, I'm afraid to tell you this because you're going to be like, you got to write a book because you tell me that.
Are you going to write a book? Why aren't you writing a book?
I know. Well, when I was I want to always write fiction, and when I was a teenager, before I got I've always been interested in these topics, obviously. But when I was a teenager, I was trying to write a fictional book about the multiverse, and in it, these multi-dimensional aliens, what they called the time of the end of worlds, because these worlds would end, the multiverses. When a world when they'd come to collect that world, they called it the harvest in my book, in my story idea. So when I saw your title of a book, The Harvest, I'm like, that recollected one of my dead novels. But that's what I always thought about it, is that, you know, we that's why I picture it. For me, they weren't aliens from a different planet. They're aliens multi-dimensional. They're all different kinds, but there's one group that was just harvesting humans, you know, for whatever purpose. There could be a lot of different purposes, but that's how I think they treat us like cattle, really. You know, that's what it seems like. You know, if this is going on with alien abductions, they tag them, they put them back, you know, they keep an eye on them, and then some people just disappear. It wouldn't, you know, some of these criminals out there would love to know how people just disappear in this day and age with all the surveillance and, you know, all the internet, all the things they can do to track people. I mean, they eventually found Osama bin Laden, right? I mean, all these things they can do to track people, but yet all these people go missing every year and nobody ever is able to find them.
It's terrifying. And, you know, I started investigating a really cool UFO case, right? And I don't know if your viewers and your listeners have ever heard of this, right? But I'm from a place called Pembrokeshire, West Wales, okay? If anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, go to the Paranormal Chronicles. I believe that's what it is. Yeah, the Paranormal Chronicles, okay? And I've got loads of pictures of Pembrokeshire, right? All the places I visit, all the places I investigate. And it's just this beautiful place, right? It's just a big wedge of beautiful land sticking into the sea, right? Population's really low. You know, we're talking about 100,000 people in a big piece of geography. We've got 58 beaches. One of them's in the top 10 in the world. We've got forests, woodlands. It's beautiful, right? Nothing really happens here. It's all about agriculture. But we do have a big refinery. We've got Milford Haven, which is the second biggest natural harbor in Europe, okay? So all along the estuary, we have refineries, LNG gas, Texaco, you know, you name it. They've all been down there big. At night, it looks like Blade Runner, you know, all lights and flames going off. And nothing really happens in Pembrokeshire. But in 1977, in Pembrokeshire, this place where Harvest is set, right? So this is what I was doing, was trying to link it, but I never intended to write Harvest. I was looking to maybe write an article or a small book about what happened in the 70s and early 80s, right? So it all began. So if any of you are like really, really big UFO buffs, right, you can either read Harvest or just go online and just search about the Broadhaven Triangle, right? So 1977, February the 4th, things have been happening for a year, lights in the sky, weird experiences. The local newspaper was documenting stuff practically every week, right? Sleepy little Pembrokeshire, bump. So these little kids, right, are in the school. It's February the 4th, 1977. 16 children aged between 9 and 11 claim that while on playtime, they saw from their school a silver-shaped cigar with a dome on top struggling behind some trees. It was kind of like moving. It was jerking around. And they were really excited. They were panicked. They were worried by this. They went to their teacher, the headmaster, Ralph Llewellyn. He sat them all down in in exam conditions and said, I want you to draw and I want you to write what you saw, right? And all these kids, right, there was like variations, but it was the same.
Yeah, I remember
principle. You remember this, right? So it was the same principle, right? So it was kind of, it was dismissed that it was a sewage truck because there was a sewage truck a couple of fields away. So one of the support staff at the school, she saw this thing and she knew it wasn't what they were saying. So she went to the sewage works and said, look, guys, did you have your van or your equipment or your machines or anything? And they were like, it's impossible. We couldn't get it by the school. So that began this UFO flap, but we started in 1977. There was actually reports in 76. So it lasted all the way through to 1982. And Pembrokeshire, this sleepy little county, became the UFO capital of the world. There was this huge UFO flap. Everyone and their mother was seeing stuff. There was this huge debate that it was hoax versus hysteria. And at the same time, right, this sleepy little county, right, we had an RAF base, we had a United States Air Force base, right? So when I was growing up as a kid, I was a little bit, I wasn't born to 1975, so I kind of missed all of this, right? So you'd be in your garden and you'd have a phantom tearing across the sky. You'd have Hercules coming across. You'd have Hawk trainer jets. And the Americans were involved in a top secret program, which nobody knew about until a bit later on, which was they were laying cables under the Irish Sea. And these were Russian sub-detection cables, right? So a lot of the debate was what were we seeing back then? Was it the Americans and the RAF working covertly to get out this stuff, right? And there was UFOs landing in fields, school kids seeing them, farmers seeing it, and then people started seeing the beings. And there was one particular family called the Coombs family from Broadhaven. They lived in Ripperston Farm, and they were harassed profusely by aliens, what they believe was aliens. They were chased in their car by a red orb, which cut out the engines of the car, right? All the way, and the car rolled down to the farmhouse. You got to think this is the middle of nowhere. You know, it wasn't cell phones. You would get your phone out and call the police and start filming it. There was none of that. No CCTV. This was like 1970s. There was 3 channels on the TV in Britain at that stage, you know. I didn't get a phone in my house till 1990, right? I was 15 when we had our first phone line. We didn't have radiators put in our house till 1990. Oh, wow. That's how backward it was. We were about 5 years getting internet on pretty much everyone in the country, right? So this family, they were very upset by this. This orb was blowing up. It blew up the car. It blew up the TV. One night they were sat in their home, and imagine this, right? In the middle of nowhere, you're by the coast, you're in your farm, you're watching TV. Back in the day where come midnight, the TV would just play the national anthem and it just flickered the static. And the family were kind of like, they'd watched the film. They were like dozing off. And then the dog just started going mad. And they had like this big window in the side of the house. And there was a glow. And stood at the window was a 7-foot man in a silver suit. And the farmer, Mr. Coombs, do you know what he did? He threw the dog outside to send it off. And
well, that's pretty awful. that's awful.
Yeah, the dog had to be put down. It was terrified.
Oh my God.
The police came down and they found like some burnt patches in the in where the flower bed was. And one of the policemen, he went on to become a very high up ranking official within the police. He said he dealt with rapes and murders and all kinds of crimes, but he'd never ever seen a family so hysterical and frightened. And it continued from there. They had a visit from the Men in Black, telling them maybe that what they were seeing wasn't necessarily what they were seeing. One of the most bizarre cases of this time was that the farmer, Mr. Coombs, he was in the shed with the cattle, and he was putting them in for the night, and the phone was ringing in the farmhouse. So he walked up to the farmhouse, took him a couple of minutes, and he was on the phone. The neighbouring farm, a couple of miles away, said, all your cattle are in our field. He said, don't be stupid. I've just been with them. And he said, they've got your tags on it. He said, oh, shut up. And he walked down, and all his cows had gone, and they transported 5 miles. And all of this is readily available. It's all out there. There was books written about it. The BBC got involved. And, you know, there was a disembodied hand that touched someone and burnt their arm. And there was a very famous story about a lady. She lived down a long farm track, and she had been talking about stuff she'd seen. And a silver car drove down and made no noise, parked up, and two men got out, and they were hairless and they were dressed identically. And they said to her, like, you know, you've been talking about UFOs and stuff, you know, and maybe you didn't see anything. And as the story goes, I don't know it fully, she had a baby or a young child, and they were like, how's the baby? How's the child?
Creepy.
Yeah. And so they drove out, they left, and she was really shaken and upset. And they drove off up the drive. And as they left and went around the corner, her husband drove down, and she was like all upset. And she said, no, those men just threatened me. And she's like, what are you on about? She said, well, you would have passed them on the drive. He didn't. So that's Pembrokeshire for you. So we've already got a history of the UFO activity. So I started investigating that just because I thought it was interesting. You know, it was around my era. I was a little bit too young. I'd interviewed a few people. Some said it was all rubbish. It was a hoax. Some people who said it was a hoax had said they were told to say it was a hoax. And while I would put a little shout out for some information, that is when a young lady named, let's call her Susan, got in touch with me, and it basically just terrified me.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. As a paranormal investigator, I get people that have come to me with cases that would be similar in aspect of degree of terror and personal safety issues. And I try to find somebody else that's more qualified to handle it. These are hard, serious cases because you're right in the line. You don't know if you're dealing with somebody who's having a severe psychological mental breakdown, because it could be that, or they're really physically going through something that you're not going to be able to help them with. So you have Susan that writes to you about wanting to meet. Let's talk. We got about 5 minutes before we go to commercial break. We'll leave people kind of hanging, but let's talk about your initial meeting with Susan here.
Well, just before we go into break, right, I just want to let people know that I'm very discerning. This is a really good segue into like meeting Susan, right? And two people are very big supporters of me, Ash and Billy. They'll be listening tonight because they kind of help me sift through. I get lots and lots of emails and letters, or not letters, but messages from people. And Billy and Ash, they kind of help me go through some of the letters and the emails and trying to discern what is worth working on. And if anyone comes to me and they're like, oh, how much money am I going to make? Will this be a film? You know, this would make a great Netflix. I'm not interested, okay?
Exactly.
It's the people who are wary. It's the people who are shy. It's the people who are embarrassed. And they'll tell you, they'll talk to you, and then they'll back off. And you know there's something there.
It's real.
Okay? I can give all my secrets away because this will be my last investigation. So just to give an example, right? I had a lady very recently, about a week or two ago, and I'm not knocking this. Please don't think I'm knocking this, because we've got to balance mental health and reality. And I said earlier, we've got to have open minds. But she claimed that her husband, she came home from work and her husband was home, and she could hear her husband upstairs in the bathroom, and she's like, hey, I'm home. And no answer. So she went upstairs and she knocked on the door, and there's no answer. So she worried something's happened. He's had a heart attack. He's fallen. She opened the door and she claims that it was, and I don't mean to laugh because everyone is entitled to have their own experience, but she claimed there was an octopus in the bath and a skin suit next to it, and her husband had been an octopus creature all this time. And I just said to her, like, it's really interesting, and I don't want to doubt you, but can you get a photograph? And she was like, no, he doesn't want it. He's very embarrassed and upset. And like that is an example of something I wouldn't necessarily wish to pursue.
Right.
Now, somebody out there might say, yeah, I want to talk to that woman all day long. And maybe some people have had their own experiences, but like, I won't delve into that. The more ordinary it begins, the more interesting it tends to be, because that's my job, is to dig and discern what is fact and fiction. And that's what I do. That's what I do. I've done 3 investigations over 7 years. They take me years and years and years. And what I hope I'm left with is a testimony and an account that you, the reader, can read and make up your own mind. It's up to you. I will give you all the information, every minute detail, and it's up to you. And I think with Harvest, people are going to read it, and it's really going to open their minds. You know, it's really going to change their perspective on the whole UFO phenomenon forever.
Well, this started in 2014. You first interviewed Susan?
Yeah, I just completed Ghost Sex Violation. I never get the opportunity to do something fun, right? It's like haunted houses, paranormal sexual abuse, aliens.
Intense.
And then I wanted to write a book about what you call them. Well, my brain's gone mad. It's it's 5:30 in the morning here. What you call it? Imaginary friends. I wanted to write a book about imaginary friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But instead I wrote a book called Ghost Sex, The Violation.
Yeah, well, the dark calls us, the scary calls us, because it opens us up to some things. And like I said, this book Harvest will make you look into the shadows of your room. You know what I'm saying, and wonder, is there something there? Like I said, I want to get into this, guys. We will take your phone calls later in the show, a little bit later, maybe not right after the second commercial break, because I want to get into this story a little bit. I don't want to give away the book. I'm still reading it. I don't want to give it away, but I want people to get a little bit of idea what you got yourself into. With her experience, what she said, because it's really gotten to me reading just where I'm about halfway through the book, just from even the beginning, because there's some elements to this. Her scene, I mean, it's just straight up seeing shadow people like I did. I mean, really, she does. It really starts with a kind of a shadow person, and I don't give everything away, but her aunt's cat dying is very similar to how my cat died during all this. Yeah. There's some similar areas that make me wonder. And I had a whole alien experience I didn't realize might have been alien months before my shadow person experience. And it makes me wonder, your book makes me wonder of how all these things are connected. It really does.
Can I just say as well, right? I'm not here to promote that all alien beings, should they be visiting, a negative, because Keith Anthony Blanchard, right, in his book Homecoming, he had a very positive experience.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's just that, as Paul Wallace said in Escaping from Eden, that there's a cabal of aliens, and they've all got very, very different agendas and designs. And one of the reasons that they don't just turn up like in V or Independence Day is because they've all got an agreement, because each race needs us for a particular thing. And some of them actually looking out for us.
Yeah, that makes you wonder if there's a Star Trek fans here, a prime directive and an alien race trying to hold the law of the prime directive, and these other aliens are breaking it to harvest us. There's so much to get into, and the show goes by so fast, but we got to go to our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Harvest, the true story of alien abduction. Like I said, I'm in the middle of reading it, started reading it Wednesday. It's a very intense story. We don't want to give away the whole book tonight. You definitely got to go out and get this book and read it if you have any interest in alien abduction. Even if you don't, open your mind to it. Trust me, this would be a great book to start with. All right, guys, maybe not. It might scare you too much, but we'll be back with our guest, Gavin Lee Davies, and we will take your phone calls a little bit later in the show. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Tired of school? Who was Joan of Arc?
Noah's wife?
Like to travel?
Let's go back into history. Let's reach out and touch someone.
Want to meet people in the past?
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden? Excellent! Execute them. Otis.
Then hitch a ride with George Carlin, Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from Orion Pictures.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, our guest is Gavin Lee Davies. 2 years. We could have gotten this story sooner. It's been 2 years since we had Gavin on. So much to catch up on because, God, think of all the stuff that's happened the last 2 years. And especially when it comes to UFOs and aliens. We are in a different place than we were 2 years ago. There's been so much more admittance from the government, so much more people. People I'd never heard talk about aliens before that I've known in my life start actually getting aware of it. There is an awakening, but it's one thing to admit that there's maybe something here and people are seeing UFOs and all that. It's a whole other step when somebody comes out and says they are taking me at night. That's still a hard one. And it's going to be a hard thing for people to come out and tell others. That's why I do this show, is that you guys have a place to come and talk. Now, I will take your phone calls. I want to hear your experiences, but we want to get into this story too. So just, if you call in now, you might be on hold for just a little bit until I get to your call, but that's fine. As long as you're fine waiting on hold, because I want to get into this story tonight. I'm really loving this book, Harvest, The True Story of Alien Abduction by Gavin Lee Davies. This is an intense story, and if you start reading it and you've had experiences like I have, it's going to make you think, am I being taken? This is one of those books, just like Terry Lovelace's Incidents Then. It makes you think about some of the stuff that's happened, because it's not like what you see in the Hollywood movies. It isn't. There's so many weirdness and strange things that evolve around these cases that to put your mind around it is impossible. For the people experiencing it, it's really impossible for them to understand what's happening to them. And that's why I love Gavin. He gets deep into these stories with people. That's why this is his third book, and he's talking about not doing it anymore, which breaks my heart, Gavin. Breaks my heart. I know it takes a toll on you to do these, but he worked really hard at presenting these cases in as much clarity as possible. So let's go ahead and get back to our guest. So let's start. You have Susan, this is the person in the book we're going to be talking about tonight, contact you, and you think it's going to be about your investigations in the Pembrokeshire UFO sightings back from the early 80s and all that. Tell us what happens.
People who know me now know there's a little cafe shop on the riverside. It's actually a well-known chain, and if you see me in there talking to someone, well, people just say my friends won't meet me there anymore now, because if you meet me there, you've been abducted by aliens, you've been haunted, you've been sexually molested by ghosts and demons. And I was kind of hoping just to do kind of like a small investigation into the past, take my own spin on it. I go really in depth. Not trying to blow my own horn, but I was been referred a couple of times by people saying like I'm a method writer. I'm bipolar. I suffer with severe depression, suicidal depression. Anybody who knows me, it's not a secret. I feel how I feel. One of my friends today was telling me I need to stop doing this because it affects me, right? So when we're talking about anxiety, fear, depression, all that negative stuff that comes with paranormal experience, it's not all seeing Archangel Michael and all good positive stuff. A lot of people have really, really negative effects.
Yes.
And I can tap into that and I can communicate that. And people read my books and they say that they come back feeling depressed. They feel the emotional weight of it. So I was kind of hoping to do something a little bit easier. Got a shout out, a younger woman. I thought maybe she's contacted me on behalf of uncles, aunties, grandparents about the Broadhaven Triangle incidents. And it turned out that she had a very, very different experience. Nothing at that stage related to the past. And when I met her, she was disheveled, incredibly, I can say this, she's incredibly beautiful and incredibly articulate, very well spoken.
Right.
She's tall, but she hid her frame in baggy clothes and joggers, and she was nervous. And her vocabulary and the way her cadence and the way she could articulate made me feel like this woman was intelligent, possibly educated. She was very stern with me. You know, she'd obviously read Ghost Sex, Violation, Haunted.
Yeah.
And she was very cagey. She didn't really want to tell me exactly what was going on, just that something had happened, and kind of like threw me a bone, and that she wanted to meet me and size me up. And I told her about the process. So my process is I will sit down with you and I will ask you what happened. And then I will ask you again and again and again and again. And I will scrutinize every detail. I will watch your body language, your micro expressions. I look at your tone of voice. I look what you're doing with your hands. Are you fidgeting? You know,
Right.
I will scrutinize you. And I have actually conducted a case which didn't last 2 weeks. There is no book because I didn't believe the people involved were real. They were looking for fame and fortune. They duped me. This woman was scared. There was something definitely going on, and the level she went to protect her anonymity was just incredible. So after some reassurances, I explained to her how I work, the disclosure, the agreements, the documentation, that nothing is released, no identity, no clues, no hints, nothing. Right. She was satisfied. Now, there's a body of people in Pembrokeshire which are really horrifically bullies and trolls, and they try and tear my work apart and anyone's work for that matter. They're indiscriminate. They're very insecure, small-minded people. And she was terrified of people like that. And that is why I am sat here right now and not her. Because even though we are in this soft disclosure and we're talking about it quite openly, there's nowhere near the level we can be of just talking about it like we're talking about what happened in the football game or the baseball game. You know, it's still a very personal thing to say. You know, even you, Jason, you've been doing this for years and you've had your own experiences. You are hesitant when you talk about the shadow people because you don't know what you experienced.
Exactly.
So, the reason Susan spoke to me was because, and this is why everybody I write about talks to me, it's about catharticism and getting it off your chest, right? You want someone who's not going to judge, not going to label you, not going to say, oh, you're mad, you're ill, you're not, all these crazy things, right? She needed someone to get it off her chest. There was a number of reasons. She wanted to warn people. She wanted it to be her eulogy because she doesn't believe she's going to make it past 40.
Right.
You know, and this was a young, attractive, intelligent woman. So I went to her flat. She lived in a rough block of housing, not rough, but like it was people with little money and there was drugs and whatnot in that area. And I went into her home and it was immaculate. This woman was incredibly well read. There was books and posters that showed that there was a sophisticated level of intelligence and appreciation for art and music. And we began the testimonial. And the reason the book is called Harvest is because one of the things she said is that she waits every night to be plucked from the ground like corn. That is, so when we talk about animals and cockroaches and cats, and she doesn't even see us on that level. The aliens are here and we're not even livestock. We're corn. We're like weeds.
Yeah.
And they will just take us. So we began this very long process of investigation. I can remember it vividly. Just at the beginning, it was just so cold. It took a long time. It took about 2 weeks just to get the first part of the book. So just to explain, so this woman was on a very, very secure career trajectory. It was a family profession that she was working very hard to be in. She was very confident. She wasn't prone in her opinion, to fantasy. She wasn't particularly interested in the paranormal or anything of that nature. And one night in 2009, so she would have been in her early 20s at this stage, her and her friends were having a bit of R&R. They were just relaxing. They were in an old farmhouse, the farm in Pembrokeshire, down a long deserted track in the middle of nowhere. And they were having a few drinks and they'd called some lads and maybe come down and join them later on. They're young girls, you know, they're not crazy girls, but they're young girls who work very hard at studying and they're just having a bit of time off, a bit of a slumber party. So Susan needed the loo. She went upstairs, and while she was sat on the loo, she could see this track descending down to the house. It was pitch black, but on this track, she could see some lights. And she thought, well, it can't be the boys we've called because they're going to take at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes. This was literally after. But the rationale was, if you weren't familiar with the area and you took that turn and you were committed to that road, you just have to drive down it, reverse, and go all the way back, right? Nobody came down it unless you knew the house was there, okay?
Right.
So while she sat on the toilet, everything goes black, and the lights outside on this track, what she thinks cars, just lift up like that. And then there's a huge beam of light comes down from above, from the skylight. And she sat there and she's thinking, she's a very rational person. She thought, well, what it probably was is because there's no lights, the power's gone off at this stage. Maybe there's an electricity fault. The lights coming down was a van with electricians in it. And in Pembrokeshire, because we're so vast, so such a widespread area, we use helicopters to investigate the power lines. You know, you probably get them in your bigger states in America and your bigger counties, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So she just thinks that's what it is. You know, it's 2009. Drones were available, but they weren't that like prominent like they are now. So she goes downstairs. The light goes off. Power comes back. She goes downstairs, and her friend's like, "Where have you been?" And she's like, "I went to the toilet. I've been a couple of minutes." You know, and they're lighting candles. They got the fire going. They're like, "You were gone 15 minutes." And she said, "No, I wasn't. I was gone a few minutes." And she checked the clock, and it was actually been about 10 minutes had gone. And she's very confused by that. She asked about the lights. Nobody knew what it was. The lads who were supposed to be coming down to visit, they rang up, said their car had broken down. I do not in any way, shape or form think that is anything to do with what happened at the farmhouse. I think that is purely coincidental, because if their car was affected by the lights at this farmhouse 20 minutes drive away, you'd have a whole epidemic of cars and vehicles and whatnot not working. So that night, when the girls they'd had a few more drinks and all, next to the farmhouse was a converted garage, which had been made into a holiday cottage. So underneath was a garage, but on top was a holiday cottage for visitors to come and stay.
Right.
The family could make money off it, right? So Susan had bags-eyed that, and also her friend's pet dog, and he was going to come with her. And she had a motive why she wanted to go on her own. That was because she smoked, but she didn't tell anyone she smoked a cigarette. While I was investigating her, she just chain smoked the whole time. Absolutely, just absolutely chain smoking. She didn't worry about cancer and things like that, because she knew that her time on this earth isn't going to be very long. So she went in, the dog got on the bed, she locked the door, she went to bed, and she woke up in the middle of the night. And it'd been an hour or two since she'd been to bed, and she had this sense there was someone in the room, and she thought there was a smaller figure in the room. The dog was asleep at this time. And then she said these huge lights above shot like pillars of light through the skylights in this holiday cottage. And it was so blinding. She was looking at it through her hands. The dog got up and he was like barking and growling. And she saw a figure. She saw a figure there, a tall black figure, very skinny, impossibly skinny, with like, she described it as having like a crash helmet on, but back to front. So if you can imagine like a motorcycle helmet, like the one that covers your whole head, but back to front. And the dog jumped and was growling. And for all intents and purposes, the dog was attacking what was ever in the room. The lights went out. It went black. There was a shout, there was a growl, and there was like a blue smoky light, and she heard the dog in pain. There was another smoky blue flash, nothing, no sound. And then there was another flash, and this face, this shiny, featureless face was by her face, and she was out. And she woke up in the morning, and she was very, very ill. She had pains in her stomach. She had a nosebleed. She described the pains as like a severe period pain. She had cramps in her back. Friends got up to take him for a walk. So she went into the other house, and all her friends were still in bed. And she said, "Oh, when did you get the dog?" And they were like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Dog." And they were like, "Where's the dog? You know, the dog was with you. You locked the door." "Yes, I did lock the door. Where's the dog?" So they went looking. The dog was never seen again.
Wow.
They called the police. They called. When I say called the police, they asked the council and the police and local vets if there had been any roadkill, any missing things, and that's where it began. And as a result, there was a big row with her and her friends because they thought she was irresponsible for losing the dog. Now, if I came to your house, Jason, and I was in your guest room with your pet, and then in the morning the pet is gone, you're going to be like, Gav, what did you do? You know, did you go out? Did you lock the door? Have you hurt it? What have you done? So that was kind of like the beginning, interesting, scary, but very much in line with other people's experiences. So at this stage, I was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Her demeanor was whatever happened was true. At every step of the way, she was trying to rationalize it.
Yeah.
Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was drunk. Maybe I was run down. Maybe this had happened. Maybe I'd been spiked. Maybe it was this and that. But eventually it got to the stage where, it was recognizable, but something very, very real was happening. Now, following on from that, she was very spooked by that. And she was seeing a guy, she calls him Adrian in the book. He was about her age, a little bit immature, but she was very spooked and she was welcome at the company. And he took her to, can I say McDonald's? I can say McDonald's, can I? Of course,
McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's. We've only
cheap
got...
date.
Yeah, cheap date. He was, right? He took her to McDonald's in a town on the water called Pembrokeshire. An old industry town, which is now surrounded by like these refineries and power plants and LNG gas places, and the whole estuary's just got giant super tankers and boats and tugs. So it's quite nice in the evening to find like a little place you can just drive up. You got your McDonald's, you can drive in. You've got the water, all the lights, you've got these huge refineries billowing like fire. So if you've ever seen Blade Runner. And those opening scenes, all the
obviously,
I know. It's my favorite movie, right? So they drive down there, and this is where things got really like, okay, now you've really piqued my interest. They were sat in a place called Hobbs Point, which is like a concrete harbor, and they sat there eating their food, and they could see all the tugs and all the stuff going on the estuary, and she claimed to see like an orange light coming towards them, and they thought it was a tug or maybe it was a searchlight or something like that.
Yeah,
but she described it as like a ball of glass filled with flame, and this thing came down the estuary and hovered in front of them, and she just said the whole car felt like it was static, which just reminded me of that scene in Close Encounters when everything gravity, and it shot off. And now she's like, I've had this experience, and now me and my man friend have seen this object. So I did a little bit of digging, and there was loads of reports of people seeing the same object that night. To the extent the tug apparently tracked it. And digging further, there's been so many sightings of these orange balls of light filled with what appears to be flame, making its way down the estuary, past all this industry, all this stuff. And I've even had a report that a stealth class cruiser has been seen navigating the estuary at night. Now, these are, you've seen the stealth bombers, all like angles and this is an actual ship. People have seen this ship, and you get all these weird scientific vessels coming in and whatnot. And she started to think there's something very real happening that is focusing on her. Her boyfriend, or this guy, he left her at the bus stop to go looking for it.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, what a great guy when reading this part of the book. Like, he's like, she's like frightened, doesn't tell him what's going on, but she's like, I want to go home. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to go chase this thing, and leaves her. Yeah.
So like kind of progressing on from that, things kind of intensify. And this is what is really intriguing for me. And like, this is why, like yourself, Jason, I'm a big fan of Communion. I love the movie with Christopher Walken. I love the book. I'm a big fan of Whitley. I respect his honesty You know, in fact, I respect the fact he's put himself out there, you know, for years and years. And one of the things I really kind of found captivating about that whole experience was kind of like trying to decode the surrealism of the images and communication, the alleged communication between these visitors and ourselves. And Susan was subjected to 3 very strange nights of what she thought was dreams.
Yeah.
They'd always start the same. The book goes into huge detail. Harvest, the true story of alien abduction, has got so much detail in it. Like, I try and get as much detail because I want you, the reader, to discern for yourself. You make your own conclusions. You decide what you think is happening, okay? I will give you as much information as I can, and you decipher it as best as you want, you know? And she would be walking up a country lane. She'd be a little girl in this like dream state, and there'd be a big faceless person just holding her hand. And lights would come from behind them, and this big man would just start running with this little girl, which was her. And then she would find herself in my hometown of Haverfordwest. But it was all askew. It would be like this perfect scene. It would be covered in snow and Christmas lights. There would be no one there. And she'd walk through the snow and she wouldn't be cold or anything. And there'd be a light where there used to be a bar.
Yeah.
And they'd go into the bar. And everything was like it was in slow motion. She'd be in this bar. There'd be mulled wine at the bar, mud. It'd be Lonely This Christmas. We'd be playing on the jukebox. And so this happens over 3 nights, the exact same detail. But the first night, her dead grandmother was there and just started like asking her questions, showing her images, referring to the shadows in the room as her friends. You know, it's okay. You know, they're your friends. And Susan would be very frightened by this dream, almost like sleep paralysis where you can't wake up. And they would hurt her. She would have pains in her head, and she'd like come to, and she'd like in this dream state, she'd be in a cinema, and they'd be showing her. It's so surreal, like trying to explain to you in like a very small amount of time. They would show her like ants killing spiders and stuff. And then the second time, the exact same night, exact same process, apart from instead of a nan, it was herself as a little girl. And this little girl is telepathy through telepathic communication, asking her things like, who would you save in a fire? Your mum or your dad? If you were raped, would you enjoy it?
Yeah.
And asking all these insane questions that Susan said she wouldn't even dream of comprehending as a child. But she felt like something or someone was extracting information.
Like a dark voice. You said it was a dark voice that would like, you know, she'd say no, and it'd be like, yes.
Yeah.
Like her inner thoughts.
Somebody was reading her thoughts and saying like she would, and she'd be mad. Somebody, like she was asked, would you enjoy rape? And she was like, no. She just imagined like someone violating her. And this voice was like, she would. And she's like, no, I want. And she was angry.
Yeah.
Like she was like swearing at him and threatening this voice with her mind. Very strange. And this happened for 3 nights. And on the 3rd night, they showed a vision of utter apocalypse. They showed her this area we live in just decimated. It was on fire. There was tankers and ferries on fire upside down. There was people melting and burning. The sky was black. Children were dying. And she has no idea what this information, what they're trying to say. As I said, it's like, Jason, you talking to your cat and saying, you know what, I'm going to get tickets today to go and see WrestleMania, then I'm going to buy a hot dog. And the cat's just going to look at you going, what's he on about? Like, you know, the comprehension between this thing, this being, and us is so off the hook, it's so off the chart that to try and decipher, to interpret is very difficult. And that's why I want people to read this, because I want people to get in touch with me with what they believe the imagery is, what their interpretation is. I, in the book, go as far as what I believe it is, and Susan goes as far to say what she is, right? And I set up an email address today just for people like your audience, and that's harvestalienabduction@gmail.com. That's harvestalienabduction@gmail.com, right? Read Harvest, A True Story of Alien Abduction, right? And please, the more of you that try and interpret what is happening, maybe you've had your own experiences, maybe the more sense we can make, maybe I can do a follow-up investigation to this, because I'm one man, you know, Jason will have his own interpretations of what he thinks going on. But it's almost like, in my interpretation, and I'm saying I could be wrong, it's like they're showing us the end of the world because we don't matter. They're saying, look, don't worry about it. You know, Susan, don't worry about this, because this is your future. This is your legacy. That's a destruction.
I've been familiar with a lot of different aliens. I should quick note really quick. For people trying to call in, I am going to take your calls. You can call in. I just got to wait on hold till I call on you, because I had somebody keep trying to call in. I see them in the chat rooms. Just, you're on hold until I call on you. I'll meet you when you're ready, but you can call in. The lines are open, people. We'll take calls here in just a minute. But you're talking about the apocalyptic scenes. There's a lot of alien abductees have been shown these kind of scenarios. Whitley Strieber being one of them has had stuff like that shown to him as well. Heidi Hollis, I never got her on the show, but I read her book, about shadow people. She had a lot of stuff where she was shown, her and her friend were shown visions of the end of the world. You wonder, all this, like the 3 nights she went through, people read the book, but the 3 nights she went through, it all seems like they were trying to emotionally engage her, understand emotion at its deepest levels. And what a better way to get an emotional reaction about somebody who's showing the end of the world. But,
exactly.
But it makes me wonder if it is a true vision, because I was just recently bringing up, and then I get to it in your book, you bring it up, is Baba Vagna. The reason I brought it up recently, I just shared on my page her prediction she made before her death about President Trump getting a mysterious illness and suffering hearing loss and maybe a possible brain tumor. I said, well, here we go. Is she going to be right? You have to wonder. One of the things she predicted too was a chemical attack on Europe. Like a major terrorist attack in 2020, a chemical attack. And here we are, Pembrokeshire is Europe.
But what you got to think is we're the epicenter of refineries and that kind of product. We've got the LNG. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen those ships or like those gigantic domes. Like one of those goes. Go and watch a video on YouTube of LNG gas exploding. It's rough, and it's very difficult to discern exactly what she has seen and what they're trying to communicate to her. But from there was more of a physical level where we started to see that there was not just like a being, there seemed to be a hierarchy, or there was different creatures for different uses. Really strange. Like one of the creatures she witnessed on her auntie and who she lived with, and the cat, she described as like a bulbous jellyfish kind of thing with impossibly thin tendril legs with bioluminescent lights inside.
It's like something out of Star Trek. Now we're talking,
Yeah. Babylon 5. I was a Babylon 5 guy. I was a big fan.
You poor bastard.
I love it. I still watch it now. I love it. And she woke up one night from the third dream, and there was this thing above her auntie who's in the bedroom opposite. There's a lot more going on that will make sense in the book. And why they're sat opposite, they're sleeping opposite, whatnot, because obviously Susan's very frightened. She's very afraid, and she does open up to her auntie. And this thing of tendrils in the cat, in its mouth and in her auntie's mouth. And in the morning when her auntie woke up, she was suffering with flu-like symptoms. She was being sick in the toilet. The cat died within a few days, and the auntie died of cancer not long after.
Yeah. And just like her friends kind of pushed her away too.
She in essence pretty much lost everyone, and she prefers that. She finds it easier to be isolated. She actually said to me, "I'm worried what will happen to you."
Well, yeah. When you had the dog go totally disappear forever, is most likely dead, and then the cat and her aunt both die. It starts to make her wonder who she's putting in danger when she's under the same roof as somebody like that. This is the part where the anxiety starts in the book, feel for this woman, because she feels responsible, even though she's not responsible for what happened, to any of these, the dog or the cat or her aunt. But that's the feeling you get, like they're after me, and these people suffered because of it.
Yeah. And I had some weird phone calls, which was really weird. I'm like Walter White. I have two, it's probably just coincidental. I have two phones. I'm like Walter White. I have two, okay? One for business, one for pleasure. And I was just getting weird static sounds. And when you spend a lot of time with paranoid people and anxious people and fearful people and depressed people, you do absorb that. And that's what I do. And that's what I do. I'm bipolar. And I get very much drawn in. I feel it all, and that paranoid is so oppressive. I think in all of my books that, one thing that, I'm profoundly dyslexic. I've got a great editor. John Hunt, the actual guy who owns John Hunt Publishing, actually edited Harvest. He saw something really good there and he's like, Gav, I want to edit it for you. But one thing I'm very good at drawing out is that emotion, that tension, that pacing of it. I spend a long time breaking down that story so that it's digestible for people with as much detail. I want people to understand what they were wearing, what they were thinking, what they were dreaming, what they were eating. I want to have everything so you can be the investigator in my books and make your own conclusion. I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. Like one of the theories about Susan's possible psychological disorder is that there is a condition where we feel so guilty about how we treat animals that we have these anxieties that we will be treated like animals as well. Yeah. So I also in the book look at the psychological rationale behind, like what could possibly happen, what could be behind it. But the more and more I got involved with Susan's story, with her account, with her testimonial, the more I spent time with her, the more I got more fearful for it. And she was resigned to the fact that she will be killed, she will be harvested. And there's a whole lot of stuff that happened, but I want to what's really important for me, for everyone out there, if you want people like Susan to come forward, if you want people like Susan to be on the show and not me, is that we need to understand what happened to her. Yeah. And not judge her and just try and understand, if we can offer rational explanations, that's good, but not be cruel, not be trolling and bullying. But it's very difficult. I was talking about there's these different levels of creatures. You've got this bulbous sack thing. You've got these tall, skinny men. You've got red lights, which kind of, I don't know, would you say they mask or they're implanted, but they come across as owls, again, with these screen memories. Communion. Yeah, they kind of get these screen memories. And like a lot of people, when they have alien abductions, they have this weird feeling, I don't know, I think I had a dream that the raccoon was going through the bin. But then under hypnosis, it wasn't a raccoon, it was some kind of alien being. And there's so much imagery in this book of foxes and owls. The foxes seem to represent the victims.
The dream she has originally of I don't want to give it too much, but really I got to talk about this. The owl. This kind of reminds me of some dreams I had, but the owl, she's naked in the water and she sees a fox on the shore, and this owl takes it up into the sky and is like dripping the blood on top of her. It's just like, it's all symbolic. It's not an abduction experience there. I don't think that's a screen memory. I think it's her subconscious trying to wake her up to what's been happening to her. The owl is just a representation of that, but it's frightening. It's a frightening dream. I think that's a lot of those intense dreams that you share in this book she has is her subconscious trying to say, wake up, remember what happened. One of the things that differs in her, we're not talking about regression therapy sessions or hypnotic sessions you did or anything like that. This is what she remembers. And a lot of people are being taken and have no memory of it at all. You know what I'm saying? She's one of those few that is remembering it. And what do you think? I'm only halfway through the book, but what do you think are the possibilities that she was taken before the events of that night in the farmhouse? Do you think there's a possibility of that, and she's just now remembering these experiences?
I don't want to spoil it for you, Jason, because you're only halfway through, but it seems that it's following the bloodline.
Right, exactly. Well,
and people marrying into the bloodline. So say, for example, I was having it done to me and I married Jamie, that will go into Jamie's family as well. They will become interested in her. And it seems that there was a level with the gran, with the auntie, with her biological mum. There was all this kind of like possibility that they've been interested in her forever. And when you find out what happens to these people, so I'm going to tell people what one of the things happens is that Susan would have this weird experience, like a dream, which turned out it probably wasn't a dream, that she was walking naked through a field.
Yeah.
There'd be a red light. She'd come out the woods. She'd feel like there was an owl chasing her. She'd walk into a field, okay, and she'd be naked. And there'd be other women naked, all nationalities, all ages, little girls, old women, ladies from Africa, all speaking different languages, all walking through this field like a herd. And she describes it like a herd of cattle. And they'd get to this one place where they'd all be sucked up, like in a vacuum cleaner. And she'd kind of always like snap just before she knew what would happen next, like waking up out of a bad dream. But she'd always be very ill. And there was so much that happened to her. There was so much happening to her, just little things with the car radio, with her dreams, with her family.
Can we talk about this? Because this brought up something too. She has an incident too. I don't want to give too much away, but
that's okay. There's loads to go for.
But with her car radio making these clicking, these sounds of clicking and weird noises coming through, and you had the phone call.
It was the same noise. Well, when I said the same noise, it was the same noise that she described.
I know you're.
Then it made me think, was she messing with me? But she didn't have that number.
But she didn't have that phone number. Right, exactly. Well, think of this. Okay, so I know you're a Babylon 5 fan, but you're also a Star Trek fan. And one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek from Next Generation is called Schisms. Have you ever seen that one? Okay, so Schisms, and I really always wondered, and I think Jonathan Frakes kind of confirmed this for me in a documentary about UFOs. He mentioned this episode, that they dedicated this kind of episode to people who were experiencing alien abduction in Star Trek Next Generation, because the crew are being taken.
Yes, I remember this one.
Remember
yes,
that?
They were greys. They were greys, weren't they?
Well, it was like these were these aliens. They were nothing like what we see greys or whatever. They had like these big hoods on. You could barely see them in the show. It wasn't really about that. It was about them, like Riker would go lay down and think he's going to sleep, and next thing you know, his alarm's going off. Like he has all this missing time, no sleep, and it's happening to other crew, and they kind of all piece it together in the holodeck. You remember that? Like they're all like talking about there's this table, and like they're just the whole part of the reason I love this episode. I didn't realize it back then. Maybe it's because something happened to me, but they were piecing together. Like they could totally ignore everything that happened to them until they all started talking, and they're like, "Yeah, I did have this experience, and I could feel this." And remember the sounds in that episode. They would all they go. There was a sound, this clicking sound, and that sound kind of. It's very, the way they describe it. You go back to the episode and tell me if that's what that phone call sounded like, because there's like this clicking and weird sounds that they hear when they're trying to describe what's happening. Because in this episode, go see it. Star Trek Next Generation. I know, Trekkie. Schisms. They're being taken by these interdimensional creatures. They don't even know it. It was a total shout out from Star Trek to people who are being abducted, I believe. And I think Jonathan Frakes kind of confirmed that for me in one of his UFO, because he does UFO stuff. He's done UFO documentaries and stuff. He definitely has an interest in it. And I think that was one of his episodes he helped direct. And that was a total shout out to alien abduction.
Well, I work with a great author. I'm not sure if you've had her on your show. If not, I would recommend it. I'll put you in touch with her. Her name's Susan Plunkett. Okay, she's from New York.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, Susan, right? She's great. And she wrote the Mission from Venus book. She's got another one coming out now in December. And she said it's a work of fiction, but it's all channeled. And she said that George Lucas said that everything was channeled. And so many people in sci-fi and horror and whatnot say that these ideas, it's not just creative muses, it's channeled from somewhere else. We've all got this inherent memory, I think. I think that we've probably been abducted since time immemorial. We can go one further. I don't want to challenge people's religious views, but we were probably engineered. There's so many weird things. That's a whole different show. But when the sound I heard on the phone, and Susan described it perfectly, is like if you step really quickly on a soda can and you squash it really quick, that metallic clunk, 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 but really quickly, okay? And I don't know if it was interference, but she heard it in her car. And I've know other people have also heard this very similar sound, like you described in Star Trek, through car stereos, through mobile phones, through speakers, through televisions, whatever. And I don't know, would that because we're picking up on something? We're picking up on engines, the radio, the communication. It's like there's a great scene. Not many people like the movie, but I kind of liked it. It was called Signs. And it was Mel Gibson, yeah? It was stupid. Because Why would those aliens come to a planet that was made of 70% of water with no
it's
armor
gonna kill 'em.
when water's going to kill you and it rains pretty
Swing
much every
away,
day?
swing away.
But there's a great bit when they're holding up the baby monitor and you can hear like this weird like in clicks and sounds like an alien Swahili. And I think we're all tapping in all these ideas from Star Trek to whatever.
That's what I'm getting at.
They come from somewhere. They come from somewhere. Now, I don't like. I can kind of like. I want to tell you a bit about what is happening to Susan and women like Susan, right? And I'm going to try and keep this as non-graphic as possible. And it is a bit of a spoiler for you, Jason. And it is very upsetting to me because I spent so much time with Susan that. You know, it's like if something bad happened to Jamie or to Rob or you know, like you get this personal affection for people and you don't want to see them get hurt or harmed. Susan said that she, in a very rare moment, she actually didn't wake up. And what she saw was she was in this huge cavernous, like a cathedral, this weird, strange, massive place with lights in the ceiling. And these red lights were floating around everywhere. And she said all these women were in herds, in lines.
Yeah.
Being led into like a tunnel. And she said she felt like she didn't have a mouth. Like there was a chemical or plastic or something covering her mouth. And in hindsight, I'm thinking that if these creatures are that advanced, they wouldn't have to put a physical thing. It'd be psychological.
Right.
You know, through hypnosis, we can tell people that they're a chicken. So it wasn't until after the book was published, I actually thought, maybe there wasn't something across her mouth. Maybe it was in her mind.
Right.
So they led through these very stuffy caverns. They're naked. Some women are falling. You know, and these things will come and they were literally this very thin line would come out and just pick them up and fly off of them, off into this cavernous place. And she said the walls seemed to be organic. She described it like mincemeat. Like she said, it was like this organic
creepy
feeling. People were soiling themselves. They were going to the loo. They were peeing. It was very clammy, very sweaty. And she went into this bigger thing and she felt like her mouth had been uncovered and she could breathe. And there was all this like sense of panic, but joy and whatnot. And these things, she said, these pipes came from the wall and they were scraping inside her vagina, in her anus, in her mouth, in her nose. There was things coming out the wall. Like we talked about that girl with the needles, you know, needles just, you know, maybe they snap off, who knows? And then they were kind of like moved along, but as they've been moved along, there was different levels and they could see the most horrific things happening on these other levels. There was children on there. There was women giving birth in like pens, no drugs, no midwife. And as soon as the baby was born, this light would come down and take the baby and those bulbous sacs would just collapse on a heap on the women that had just given birth. You know, they were talking about artificial insemination where the men were still intact from the waist down with all pipes and tubes, but women were being presented on conveyor belts. And then she saw people being totally harvested. They were in like a funnel. And there was a device in the middle and these pipes would come out and it would literally enter older women. Now, these were like women of an advanced age and it would suck out their innards and just leave them like a bit of skin. And she saw this and she believes it to be real. I can't tell you, I wasn't there. But
you know what I think about, because I haven't got to that part of the book, but the parts where she's being like emotionally gauged also seems like all three times she would experience a sharp pain in her head.
Yeah.
Like really sharp pain. My immediate thought is, you know, the pituitary gland and the amount of hormones and stuff that come out when somebody's completely scared and in fear of their life. I mean, with all the conspiracy theorists out there and talk about satanic cults and adrenochrome, made me wonder, you know, if there, you know, if humans have stuff in them that could be drug-like or aphrodisiacs, you know, and they needed it by playing off our hormones and stuff like that. That first few experiences felt like she was being harvested then.
Yeah. It starts very small. Like, for my belief, I'm not an expert on it. I've written a book. I've interviewed a woman over a number of years, gone through the process of fact checking and getting it edited and stuff. But I don't know. This is my last investigation of this ilk, and I don't know. I think it's real, Jason.
Well,
I think there's something happening. I think there's too much now. And since the book was completed, this was finished. This was handed over to John Hunt Publishing in January 2019. Look what's happened since then.
Yeah. Like I said, it's been 2 years since we had you on, to think about all this stuff we had to cover and go over since then. Well, I mean, think about other cases, other stuff, people like the whole Dulce base thing. All the stories have come out about that, about a level where they have vats of human body parts, and the aliens bathing in it. And like, I mean, I've heard this about other alien abductees seeing it on the ship, seeing a vat of like plasma and human parts. Like, are we food? I mean, we could be food for an alien race, or aphrodisiac, or all.
Some aliens getting the rocks off on us.
Well, you point out in the book how for a farmer with a pig, they use so many. It's not just getting the pork chops; they're using all the different pieces and using as much as they can from the animal.
Was it 242? Was it? I can't remember off the top of my head. It was like 242 different uses of a pig, including washing powder and bullets.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, who knows what all the different things we could be being harvested for? What they're using us for. This is why maybe you say we channel these things. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, when I was trying to write this story, I always referred to this alien rapture kind of thing as the harvest. Like, they're getting picking up. For mine, it was like an end of the world scenario, and they just start picking up people for the final harvest. It was called the final harvest, I should say.
You need to write. You need to write. I can't tell you enough. But like, we've got all these different things coming out. We're a prison planet. We will be. This might be a bit Babylon 5, but we've been bred to be an intergalactic army. For an upcoming war. When there's all this stuff about hybridization. So much stuff about hybridization, and then you've got the harvesting aspect as well. There's people that they have a very pleasant experience. They go up, they meet these aliens, they get a spiritual enlightenment, off they go. You get people who they just seem to be interested in the physiology, and they're being, experimented on and probed, and that's about it. And some people are a bit more psychological, but there does seem to be, as Paul Wallace said in Escaping from Eden, this cabal of aliens. They've all got their different agendas, and the only reason that they're not taking, Susan reckons it was thousands of people on this. I don't know what you want to call it, a spaceship or a factory or an underground, but I don't know. Nobody knows what it was. Is it in our space? Is it cloaked above the earth? Is it in the sea? Is it in a different dimension? We don't know. And once you go there, you're not coming back. And if you do come back, they're going to keep coming for you. And there's nothing you can do. And this is why I get so cross. I said earlier about if a Chinese or Russian or North Korean aircraft flew into American airspace, you'd shoot it down. If the North Koreans were kidnapping women and doing what they were doing in this place, you go to war. You'd invade them. You wouldn't think twice.
Unless you can't stop it. I want to get before we go to commercial break, I want to see if we can get this person I think has been trying to call in. We got 860 area code. Who do we got on the phone line?
Hi, Jason. This is Ariana.
Hey, Azariana. Thanks for calling in. You got a question for our guest tonight or experience?
Everything that he's saying is hitting home because, he's never heard it, but I've said it before that I was abducted, alien abducted. I was 5 years old, and until I was like 27 or 28. And so has some of my family members. So I think in the family, in the generations of the family. The only question I had is that how do I get the information out that I was given from them to the public, because they want it out and I'm not that talented to do that.
Hi, Zariana. It's really nice to speak to you. And honestly, you are talented. You have incredible gifts, and everyone has a reason and a purpose in life. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's about, if you have a strong conviction about this and you feel that you can take people's judgments and you can take that level of scrutiny, then, blog about it. Come on shows like this about it. Yeah, blog about it, write about it, go on shows, tell people, contact your local paper. If you do that, that's an incredibly brave thing to do, because Susan, she's a wonderful young woman and she's hiding behind a pseudonym, like an anonymous name, because she's terrified. Susan will come out when two things happen. One, when her parents are dead, because she can't live with the shame of them knowing this, even though it looks like they've probably had very similar experiences to her, but they've just shut it off. They've suppressed it. And two, when more and more people can come forward to talk about it without fear of being bullied. And for you to go out there and talk about your experiences is fundamentally, profoundly life-changing. You are part of that movement that I'm trying to motivate and encourage. If you go out there and you tell people about, look, this is my experience, right? I'm not sat here in tinfoil. I'm not talking about little green men. This is something that happened to me and I need to talk about it. And please do so in whatever fashion suits you. Draw, paint, make a song about it, write, whatever suits you. Just get that information out there. It's important. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thank you, Zariana.
Thank you. I certainly have enough information for a book, but maybe one day.
Talk to Jason. Jason's going to write. I'm retiring from the investigations, but Jason keeps saying about it. I'm just saying, maybe,
Maybe. Well, thank you, Zariana, for calling. We got to go to our last commercial break. You have a great night.
Thank you. You too, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We're still going to take your guys' calls when we come back from this commercial break. Last commercial break of the night. Man, see, here we are. Only got half an hour left of the show, Gavin. Like that. It's just gone. It goes by so fast. It's like, I always say, it's like an alien abduction in itself. You're like, whoa, where'd the time go? Missing time. That happens on Paranormal Soup. You'll have missing time. Be warned. All right, guys, we'll be right back to talk with Gavin Lee Davies about Harvest, the true story of alien abduction. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and interfacedeath.net.
This is an Apex Studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Please, Spock, do me a favor, and don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
I've had several people trying to call in, and then they hang up. You got to remember, you got to wait on hold. You'll hear us, and then we'll call on you. The phone lines are open, especially the 219-230-4444. That's open, or Skype ID JBland00. Call in if you've had an experience. I really do want to hear it tonight. I know me and Gavin, we've got a lot of catching up we've been doing, and this story is incredible. But I do want to hear from you guys tonight. This last half hour, you want to call in while we're talking. We'll try to take your calls. Call in 219-230-4444. Skype ID JBland00. Those are the ways to call in. There is also the 260-225-9419 or Skype ID Paranormal Soup JBland. Those are the ways to call in. We will take your calls, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. So I got a call. I knew this guy was going to call in. He had to. Well, hopefully it's connecting here. Come on, Skype. There we go. We should have him. I think we got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. So I'm just going to share one of my experiences that I had tonight just due to time. Hey, Gavin, very nice to meet you, my friend. Love hearing everything that you're saying.
Thank you.
So the experience I'm going to share, it happened back in April of 2009. I remember walking out in my backyard, and I was standing outside with my mom. And I remember looking up in the sky, and I see this bright white flash up in the sky. I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't know what caused that, but I kept seeing it about 2 times already after the first flash had happened. And I didn't think much of it, so I went in for the night and I went to bed. I woke up the next morning. I was laying on my right side and I couldn't move at all. And I feel like someone pressing their finger right into my lower back, like they were pushing a button. And all of a sudden, I just start vibrating. I can't move, but I'm vibrating. I'm shaking a lot. And I can't speak at all, but finally I'm able to whisper out, "Who are you?" And I feel some tension release off my neck. I turn around slightly and I look up and I see this tall being looking down at me. This figure had long blonde hair, pale white skin, and they were in a silver jumpsuit. But the feature that really caught my attention the most were this being's eyes. They were just completely white. There was no pupils in them whatsoever. And the only thing that I can make out is, "Who are you?" I kept asking, "Who are you? Who are you?" And then finally, I snap out of this phase that I was in. This being is gone. And I remember I was freaking out. I'm like, what the heck just happened? And I went immediately and I woke up my mother, and, I had another series of incidents that happened, during that summertime, which due to time I won't go into. But looking back right now, I realized I wasn't in any kind of danger. I didn't feel like I was, but I think that this entity, whoever it was, really was present to really show that, because I'd been interested in the UFO extraterrestrial phenomenon for, ever since I was a kid. But I think that this being showed up to really validate that, hey, they're real. Yeah. So that's my story.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Zach. There's a couple of things there that really piqued my interest. Is that these blondes or Nords, they're very, very common. And they seem to have a totally different agenda. I haven't had any contact or research with anyone that has come into them. But something that I would maybe recommend you research would be the Billy Meyer case from Hinterschmidt Rudy in Switzerland. He's a one-armed guy. He's in his 80s
very famous now. And controversial case.
Very controversial. And it seems that some parts of it are undeniably real, and some parts he's hoaxed, almost as if he's trying to keep it going.
Yeah.
But it's very similar, and it's not uncommon. They've very much seen in like places like Russia. And you said that you were interested as a child. Maybe that's why you were interested as a child, because maybe this has always been with you. Maybe this is part of your life. You know, we have these interests in things, you know, some people call it cultural or karmic imprints, you know, that we have this interest in stuff and we don't know why. You know, we're all obsessed with what's above in the stars. We're all obsessed with what happens when we die, you know, and that's there for a reason, because it's ingrained in us. And I think that if you look deeper into your past, I would imagine you've had a lot more experience, Zach.
I've definitely had a lot more experiences for sure on that, which due to time I'm not going to go into, but I've shared them before over on Jason's show. He's heard the stories before of the different encounters that I have had. So, but
email me a link to that show if you could, or Jason to Harvest.
Several shows.
Several shows. Send them to me, Zach, at harvestalienabduction@gmail.com, and I will listen to them, because, as I said, I'm kind of like hanging up the hat now with the old investigations and getting back to what I enjoy, and that's listening and collating stories, you know. So, you know, I can't tell you who or what you saw. All I know is that since writing Harvest and that investigation, my eyes have certainly opened to a lot more possibilities than I had before.
Thank you, Zach, for calling in, bud.
Thank you, Zach.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to call in. By the way, Gavin, before I go, just want to say that I love your skull ring. I actually have 2 of them. The only difference is, though, is that mine have cigars in their mouth. So I just wanted to put that shout out.
Thank you very much. I totally forgot I had it on. Thank you very much, Zach. Giving you a fist bump, a socially distant fist bump.
Virtually distanced.
Virtually distanced fist bump. Keep in touch,
Have a great night, Zach.
Nice to hear from you, pal. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
I got somebody else on the line I want to get to here in just a second. I had to call him back because I missed his call. Hold on one second. We got Marcus on the line, but you know, God, I don't want to lose this train of thought, because you know, Zach shared his story on here. I'm still diving into my experiences, and my experiences, if I've had an alien contact, were not severe, but maybe they were if the shadow person's related to that. But we've had people like on Robert Douglas who had the Nordic experience. Yeah. And it was pleasant. It was a contactee experience, like giving him a message about the world. And that was a apocalyptic message for him too. But his was a pleasant experience. They like took him on a ride around Jupiter. You know what I'm saying? It was very pleasant, you know, but there's got to be other factions, because some people are having very unpleasant experiences. Like Terry Lovelace's experience is completely unpleasant. You know, we've had other people that have the pleasant experience. That obviously means we're dealing with a number of factions. All right, let me get to this call here. We got Marcus on the line. How you doing tonight, Marcus?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you again for taking my call. And it was lovely making your introduction last Sunday. So here's a couple of weird questions for you. One, I used to host a radio talk show myself in the wee small hours of the morning, 3:30 to 6 a.m. Sundays on a local nonprofit community radio station, which has since eliminated all trace of my name, my brother's name, my brother's then wife's name. It's like we don't exist anymore, even in their archives. Curious, but not unexpected, the way this year has gone. But also, since the age of 8, I have been absolutely riveted by Scottish bagpipe music. I cannot explain it. When my mom heard me listening to it on a local San Francisco PBS station, she thought I'd lost my mind. And then I found out that, well, my dad's family is English, Irish, German. I'm quarter Irish at least by ancestry, so that may explain part of the Celtic influence. But then I found that in Slovenia, where my mom's family is from, there was the Latin civilization and a very strong Iron Age and pre-Iron Age Celtic tribal presence, which I totally was unexpecting. That means I've got Celtic influence from both sides of my family. Now, have you come across anything in your various gerontological or genealogical explorations which might account for this?
No, like, so you're hearing bagpipes, but are you only hearing them?
No.
There's a
It's
fascination.
not I'm hearing auditory hallucinations.
All right.
I have had bone-deep fascination with bagpipe music from the age of about 8 years old on.
It's not exclusive to Scotland, the bagpipe. You know, the French have got their own version and the Irish have got their own version, you know, and even in Wales where I live, you know, it's a very common instrument in Celtic culture. You know, a lot of people associate the Celts with Wales and Ireland and Scotland, but they were all over Europe as well. But unfortunately, it's not an area I don't know much about, but I'll throw that open to Jason if you've got any thoughts on that.
Well, to me, Marcus, that clearly, I mean, like I have always had a fascination with the East, you know, like China and Asian since my childhood. And then I had a very clear memory of being an Asian person, a vivid dream, but I think it was a past life. And I think that could be what you're delving into there is maybe some past life recollection. That's what it sounds like to me.
There's also a thing, now I understand, sorry to interrupt you, now I understand the question. There's a great book called Energetic Dimension by Anne Drake, and it deals with a concept called karmic imprints, where culturally things are passed through. It's called Energetic Dimension by Anne M. Drake, an amazing read. I've got it here somewhere. I would check that out, Marcus, because you can have past life experiences without the full past life thing. It's just something that is natural to you.
Yeah. And it's confined mainly to England, to Britain, and Scotland and Ireland, because not the Uilleann pipes, but the Great Highland War pipe. That is what chills my blood.
Very possible, you know, if your ancestors were from Europe, which they were, you know, it's you know, then it's very conceivable that you could have that karmic imprint in you, or cultural imprint, you know, or even past life.
Yeah. What got me was the fact that my mom's family could be Celtic and at least part of their ancestry, which means I get it from both ends.
Yeah. Have you had like past life regression?
No, I have not.
Would you consider it?
Oh, you bet. If I knew of a practitioner that wasn't going to charge me an arm and a leg, I'd volunteer like a shot.
Chris Lee. Check him out. He's been on the show. Yes, I've done it. I've had him do it to me. So definitely check out Chris Lee. He does it remotely. He can do it through a Skype call. Check out Chris Lee. If you message me later, Marcus, I'll make sure you get his information.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Yeah. All right.
Take care, Marcus. Keep safe.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet a fellow Celt.
Right. Well, see, you know, I'm a big, you know, I'm a Gnostic. I question everything, but I'm a spiritual Gnostic. I believe in an afterlife. I believe in a higher power. My shadow person experience opened me up to the belief in God. I have a belief in God. Maybe not the same belief in God a lot of other people have, but it's more like the Force. But I believe in a higher power. You know, I've had a lot of things opened up to me. You know, I question everything, but I definitely have evidentiary things that have influenced me through my life to believe in certain things. And one of them is past lives. I've had two very clear, very vivid dreams that I know were past life memories. So I completely believe in that concept. Now, again, to reference Art Bell, can't help it because I listened to so many years of Art Bell.
Yeah.
But you know, he'd have on Jonathan Lear, and those are my. Everybody knows that's listening to me. My friends know that's my favorite of the Art Bell interviews. Is some of the John Lear speculations there. John Lear would just go on tangents, and one of the things he would talk about is like the aliens treat us as containers. And even Bob Lazar had made mention of this in the documents he saw, that we were containers, and that there's this whole element to the aliens that they are control of our afterlife and our rebirth, possibly. You know, do you see anything in Susan's experience that points to any evidence of that?
No, just to be like blunt,
Yeah,
like,
no.
there's lots of experiences I've read and studied. Even Whitley Strieber feels like there was a spiritual ascendancy from his communication. Despite what they did to him, he felt like they leveled him up, to use like a gaming term, right? You know, I know you guys are, you know, you've never played me at PUBG. I wouldn't want to embarrass you. But with Susan,
don't even, buddy. You're talking about the squad right here.
Let's bring it. I'm not that good at PUBG. I could beat you at Call of Duty, but that's another story. Okay. But anywho, like with Susan's experience, there was nothing enhancing. There was nothing spiritual. There was nothing.
Right. It's just tormenting.
It was just pure cruelty. Now, I'm a big softie when it comes to animals. I love animals. I get really sad about animals being mistreated. And you see these pictures and films of cattle going in to be having the bolt in the head, and they're panicking. You see cattle where the calves have been taken off them, and the mums, they're just going mad trying to protect them. And that's what's happening to us. We think a cow is dumb because it doesn't do what we do. We've put them in a field and eats grass all day, and we can milk them and do what we want. And guess what? There's something out there, and it's doing that to us. Yeah. And it doesn't care. It doesn't matter if you believe in God. It doesn't matter how strong you are, how tough, if you know Kung Fu, how spiritually aware. If they pick on you for whatever reason, whatever lottery they've got, whatever system, you're done. You're done. If you're lucky, you will just die at a reasonably natural age of a cancer or a degrading disease. If you're a nobody with no contact, with nobody in your life, no family, you maybe you're homeless or something like that, they're going to take all of you, and there's no coming back. And I remember vividly, just came into my head now, somebody left a review for Harvest, a trade review, saying it was more surreal than communion. Harvest was more surreal than communion and more terrifying than fire in the sky. And I remember that horrific scene when Travis is floating around the spaceship, and there's a man in like a pod, and he's literally the top of his chest up, and he's still alive. And it's like, what are they doing? What are they doing up there? You know, if it's like, it could be psychological. Okay, let's go that route. Psychological, right? Maybe we all have this inherent fear of, you know, we realize we're damaging the planet, the environment. There's a lot of stuff in Harvest, the true story of alien abduction, about the environment, about how we treat animals, how we treat ourselves, what our environment and our diet is doing to our brains. It's all in there. You know, you make up your own mind. But if this is true, our governments know. Our governments know that people have been taken, and there's not a lot they can do. But we need to know the truth, right? We need to know, because for people like Susan to come on the show and said, I mean, we need a huge sea change in attitude. This is how you can all help, okay? First of all, read a story. Read Harvest, the true story of alien abduction, and respect her alleged experience. And then do the biggest thing you can do, right? And that is talk about it. Ask your friends, your colleagues, your family, your community, what if alien or strange beings are coming to this planet and abducting, experimenting, and harvesting people like livestock? Susan and her account of alien abduction is not the only one. There are thousands every month, hundreds of thousands over decades, and maybe millions over centuries. So let's start talking seriously about this now. The government, the American government, have given us a little nugget now. We know there's something going on, right? And it's time that we have stopped being harvested. We have human rights, right? It means nothing to aliens. So if that's the case, we need to tool up. I put it in my book. People say, oh, you're talking nonsense. What are we supposed to do? I don't care. We won't go freely. We won't be taken from our beds. We won't be taken from our loved ones. We won't see our women and our children and our husbands and our wives abused like this. Our governments need to step up now. If they have got technology, if they have got things in place, they need to start protecting us, or at the very least telling us the truth. Because as people sat at home, as I said earlier, waiting for loved ones to come through that front door, and they're not coming back. They are not coming back. You know, quantum generator, amazing stuff he's coming up with.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to read the comments here.
Quantum generator, I don't know who you are, but what you're saying, amen to it. This guy's got it.
Yeah.
We are just cattle to the talking monkeys. We're not even monkeys to these things. When you read Harvest, right, it's going to leave you cold. It's going to leave you anxious. Non-alien believers, like people who are not into the subject, who've reviewed the book, have said, I would never have read this, but this has terrified me. I don't know what is happening. I don't believe, but we need to talk about this, right? More than Ghost Sex, the violation, more than Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, this is really, really connecting with people, because deep down, each and everyone knows this is real. Each of us have had that experience where we've seen a strange light in the sky, or a strange shadow in our bedroom, or strange dreams of waking up with a nosebleed or pains in us. So many people. And it's happening. And we are doing jack shit about it. We are just sat here, pardon my language, we're just sat here allowing it to happen. So guess what? American government are giving us free license now to go and ask for the truth. Yeah,
See,
they've told us now.
It's a snowball effect. That's what they said. They would never come out with anything or any kind of disclosure, because it would just, the ball would start rolling. But they've done it at a perfect timing where the world's completely busy thinking about other stuff. But eventually those questions got to be asked. Well, if this is true, people, you got military aircraft tracking these things, you got it on video, and now you got people saying they're being abducted with physical evidence. Like I said, I've had Terry Lovelace on here. I think he's presented some of the best evidence. I mean, the last time we had him on, we're showing that his iPhone tracked him going up 6 stories above his house in the middle of the night. I mean, the x-rays. I mean, there's physical evidence these people have. I have had my own experiences I'm still trying to figure out. But I woke up with a perfect round circle, like somebody took a cigarette, burned my face. You know, this is before I understood what was happening. It might be happening to me. I don't know. I've had experience, you know, when I was camping, you know, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure these things out. That's what makes me think how many other people have had just the slight impressions like I've had, like something's not right or something's happened to me at times. And they don't even, they can't piece it together. They don't know. And there are people who have no memory at all. They don't realize they have missing time. They don't realize these things. And then you have the ones like Susan. They do realize. They know what's happening to them. And it's isolated them even more. If you look at Susan, you read the Harvest, Susan is totally isolated. She's isolated herself because of fear of her harm to others because of this, and ridicule, you know, completely isolated. That's the scariest part right there. She has no one to turn to or talk to about what's going on, and is waiting to die.
She's waiting to die, right? She wrote a letter, which she gave me an email right before she journeyed off. She's gone. She's gone to Australia now, because she's like, well, what's the point? When you read the whole book and her story, it's so tragic. That was a woman with promise. That's a woman who should be a mum. That should be someone who's married in a fantastic career, going to have dinner with her family on a Sunday, not sat away in a bit, you know, just chain smoking herself to death because she's terrified she's insane. Terrified they will come for her. There's so much more about it. Like, this red creature came into her house and stopped time. I can't explain it. I spent weeks trying to put all those notes into something that we can comprehend, because there's so much going on where they control our psychology, our technology, our environment, our physics. We can't
our
do
souls.
About it. Our souls,
maybe even our souls. Yeah,
that's a terrifying prospect, right? Now in Harvest, I also spent time collating. I just put it out there, and I had a load of people get in touch with me, right, with their own experiences, right? People are still experiencing odd things in Pembrokeshire, right? So that's going to be happening across the world. Okay, one guy, he woke up in the night, right, on his phone. He had really bad dreams. He's getting little triangular marks on him, pains in his back, feelings. His phone tracked him to be in Papua New Guinea.
See, just like Terry.
200 miles off the coast of Papua New Guinea. The guy lives in Pembrokeshire. He lives in Haverfordwest, you know. There's something happening. We can't explain it. And like, NASA are giving up. Do you know what, right? People say, oh, there's these big Borg cubes on the sun. No, they're pixels, right? Because they can't be bothered anymore. They're just blocking it. The stereoscopic sun satellites, they're just giving up trying to hide stuff now. The ISS, they're just giving up.
As I say, International Space Station. Just last week we had something on from that, just totally tracking the International Space Station. It's following them. Yeah,
we've given up. All NASA astronauts coming forward. It was I watched the Dr. Stephen Green documentary recently, and all these NASA people coming forward. Royalty, Prince Philip, all coming forward. Going, yeah, UFOs, presidents, Jimmy Carter, all these people. Somebody knows somewhere. One day, right, I'll probably go missing because I've been running my big mouth, right, about this, right? And you'll say, we know where he is. I'll be harvested on some alien spaceship. I'll tell you one thing. I'll put up a fight. We need to tool up and we need to stop this. We got to stop. The message here, right, if anything good comes out of this, right, we got to stop being tribal and focusing on ourselves. We got to start looking up and we got to work together. It doesn't matter what race, creed, political persuasion, sexuality, religion. We got to say, hey, what if this is real? We've been told there's UFOs now. The Russians have known, the Japanese have known, the Belgium have known, the UK have known, and now it's come out. And we got to start working together as a race of people. It would be the best thing ever. We all come together and say, stop fucking fighting with each other and work together, because they don't care about us, guys.
Well, look how we're being divided now. I mean, all over the world in different ways. This is like there's a purposeful intent to divide us and make everybody fight about everything as stupid in the world as they can fight about the stupidest things. Yeah. And I just go back to Reagan's 3 times he gave a speech about how all our differences, these countries and everything, would be put aside if there was an alien threat to this world.
Yeah. And that's what he said. He said that to Gorbachev in Reykjavik.
Yeah.
The 2 most powerful men in the world at that time, when we were on the brink of nuclear annihilation, for 10 minutes, stopped all their problems to talk about something up there. And then everything came, Chernobyl, right? One of the authors, he wrote a book. A UFO was there then. The Russians knew it was there.
Well, they said that whole disaster should have been way worse than it was. Many scientists don't understand how Chernobyl wasn't worse than it was, and there's the claim that UFOs interfered on that.
Oh, do you know what, Jason? I'm gutted this is over now. Do you know what? How about like once like a year I come back and we just chat?
Please.
And what I'll do is, right, I'll get some of my books from 6 books and we can talk about the different topics and stuff, because I love this. I've missed it. I
missed you too. I miss you too, man. Because trust me, since we booked you, we've been counting down. So we're like, when's Gavin going to be on? Yeah. Because you're just one of the easiest guests to talk to about so many different subjects. You're so well spoken about it and passionate about it. Yeah, but I honestly, Gavin, I feel like you're not done writing. I know you think you're done, but I don't feel like you're done.
Well, very quickly, right? There might be something in the pipeline, because last year I had a spirit detachment session, and that blew my mind.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, definitely want to hear about that. See, Gavin, you're not done. You're not done. You're not done. You can't be.
Just one more fight. I'll die in the ring fighting.
Well, thank you so much, Gavin. Yes, we got to do that. We got to do this again. Let's not let it be 2 years. Next year, at least by next year, you got to come on. And even if you don't, even without a book, I don't care. You got to come on.
Everyone loves Ghost Sex. 5,798 views for that one.
Right. Well, I think everybody's gonna love Harvest. Definitely check it out. Harvest, the true story of alien abduction. It's, like I said, I can't wait to finish reading this book. It's very intense, and it's gonna make you, like I said, look at those dark shadows in the room. Make you think about times you might have had missing time. It'll make you think. It'll make you wonder. Check it out. Harvest, true story of alien abduction. Next week, we're going to have Rita Louise on about entity attachment. So maybe you should check into that one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you to everybody who shares the show. Thank you to everybody who subscribes us on YouTube and Facebook. And thank you to the patrons. You do help pay the bills. It's $2 a month. It does help pay the bills. Needed very greatly, because this show isn't free. It does cost money. So thank you to everyone who is a patron. All right, guys. See you next week. Have a great night. Same bat time, same bat channel. 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. 11 p.m. Pacific time. 4 a.m. across the pond there it starts for people like Gavin. We will see you next Sunday.
Keep safe, guys. Love you. Woo!